All right, guys, what's going on? Let me switch back over here. There we go. What's up, everybody? Happy Friday. Our guest will be here in about 11 minutes or so give some time to catch up and talk to you guys. Renee, thanks for stopping in. Chris Klotz, welcome in. Was great to see you. William Christopher 40 Cobra Kai. Agreed, man. Definitely was really cool to see that. So, J-Cat, what's up? How's it going, Scorch? Tater Tot, Terrible TJ, Melissa, Bonsai. Like the stream, indeed. Marinella says, greetings from Argentina. Hey, welcome in. Toto, what's up? Ramiro, what's going on? JMO, what's up? So, yeah, guys, very excited about this one. I was a little nervous too, and I'll explain why when our guest gets here. But now I'm getting tongue-tied. But yeah, so Ghost Fixer, how is it going? I'm doing all right. How are you? So, tell me, guys, what you guys got planned for the weekend. For me, it'll be a somewhat chill weekend. So we have the Darryl Vidal stream on Sunday at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time. Probably the earliest I've done a stream in a long time. I don't know if I remember if I've ever done a morning stream back on Twitch. I might have at some point. So got that. I got Taekwondo class tomorrow, doing some weight training. Catching up on taxes, honestly. That's like the main thing I still got to do this weekend is kind of get that under control and, go from there and whatnot. So yeah. If you guys have, I'm sure you guys will have much more interesting weekends than I will, at least as far as that goes. So, but I got some content too. I'll be catching up on. So, but yeah, so yeah, guys, that's what's been going on. Had a good time yesterday being back in martial arts after one. Yeah, that's good, man. I'm glad that you got back into it. I had class last night too, and it felt really good to kind of get back in the rhythm of things. It's really cool too because there's now also another adult student in the class, which is nice. So we were kind of having fun because we were doing like some we kind of do some exercises for like speed and stamina and stuff like that. So we're kind of racing each other, so it was really cool. So been rewatching Cobra Kai. Love Part 3. Nice. What game to play? I recommended this game last time. I don't know if you were here. If you like bullet hell games, this new game's been my addiction. I'll definitely be playing it probably after I get off stream here too. It's called Karate Survivors. So if you've heard of the game Vampire Survivors, it's just like that. Now, I will say it probably should have been called Kung Fu Survivors, mainly because the character is very Jackie Chan-esque, and there's like a lot more Chinese martial arts than there is Japanese martial arts. But it's still a really, really fun game. So many cool like techniques and stuff like that. So basically, it's like you have like these almost endless waves of enemies, right? The more you defeat, the more basically you level up each time, and you can kind of reroll for perks and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's really fun. You basically have to survive for a certain amount of time. Then you fight the boss. The boss is a lot easier. It's just like as the waves kind of increase in numbers, it gets harder. So you definitely got to pick the right upgrades and be very mindful of like moving, and stuff like that. I think Karate Survivors is still only on PC, but Vampire Survivors, I think I was talking about that with some friends last night. It's like $5 on the Switch. So for console players out there. So Melissa, I have reached out. Just was not in the cards this time, unfortunately. So, but maybe down the road, we'll see what happens. So, I saw your IG stories where you earned your. Thanks, man. Yeah, I got the newer patches. I got was best kicks, which is really cool because I've really been working on my roundhouses, and I got best forms again because I think so. Yeah, the other one. Best sparring, best breaking, best forms. I think I got that when I was promoting to yellow belt, from white belt, black stripe to yellow belt. And then these other two I got from yellow belt to yellow belt, black stripe now. I've also got a hang of the form now, the current Poomsae I'm learning. So really, really psyched about that. I can't wait to add like some more snaps and volumes and stuff like that. So you're bigger than some of the adults in class. Hey, I've definitely been on the mat with some people bigger than me too, but just remember, as Mr. Miyagi says, it's not about who's stronger, it's about who's smarter. So, but yeah, I would recommend Karate Survivors. I've been trying to get back a little bit of Minecraft too. I'm kind of getting tired of Marvel Rivals at this point. It's been fun, but like I just had some bad string of luck of trying to win some games lately. So, but yeah. So, hey, Knuckle Duster Buster, what's up, man? Hope your weekend's going well. No, you were on time. We're still waiting for Sensei. You know, I always go early, a little bit live before the interviews. You know, before the guests get here, just to kind of, you know, talk to you guys and hang out and stuff like that. So, love William Christopher Ford. Yeah, this is gonna be a really good interview. I tell he's really cool. We got to talk a little bit leading up to the interview and stuff like that. So, boxing, yep, boxing's good. Boxing's also good. This is such a hard question to answer. I've been asked this before. I mean, season one's just great. I think season one, I could say, it really just would really come down to like, what's something I can say good about each season. Like season one, I think is the closest in tone to the original Karate Kid films. Season two had a great cliffhanger. I know some people didn't like that it was more focused on the teens, but I thought it was really good. Not to mention black paint on a white wall is probably still one of my favorite Johnny speeches of all time. So, honestly, I like season 3 as well because of like going back to Okinawa and also Daniel just kind of like slowly mending things with Johnny. Season 4, excellent cliffhanger. Thought the tournament was great. Not all jokes landed so many characters. I know a lot of people don't like season 5, but I thought season 5 was a very nice homage to Karate Kid 2 and 3. I would have been happy with it if it ended right there too, honestly. You know, season 6 part 1 was more of a build up to the later seasons, but it all kind of paid off. So, but yeah. Oh yeah, we're definitely gonna talk about this, dude. I've seen some of his moves, man. So, it's perfectly handled. Agreed. Daniel LaRusso depression. Yeah, it was really cool to kind of see him like finally start finding that balance and whatnot. So, and yeah, we definitely should have seen more Master Kim backstory. So maybe do that. So, he's someone I'm still currently reaching out to as well. So, seriously, if you haven't been watching, man, we still want you on the channel. So, but yeah, that's kind of what I've been doing. Remember in season 1 and 2 we had just doing one arm handstands. Yeah, that was cool. I'm really sad that move never came back. I feel like for all the hype of it being like the new crane kick, they just kind of like stopped after season 1. So, yeah, it's barely dangerous in season 6. Yeah, so Silver kind of had to play it more smart in season 6. But I mean, you know, the fact that he got Daniel kidnapped, and not to mention, you know, Daniel kidnapped, he was going to do even more dangerous stuff to Johnny and his family and stuff like that. I think he had to act a certain way to get what he wanted. So I don't know if I would say less dangerous, but you know, at the same time too, he had like, I personally think he had plenty of time to shine in season 4 and season 5. So sort of Nerf and Hurricanna, the Luso. Yeah. Dennis had a bit more of a role to play in Karate Kid Part 3. Yeah, I know some of his scenes got cut. I think they did a pretty good job of handling him in season 6. It was cool they gave more than one fight scene too, you know. So, our strategy kick is that. Yep. Hey, welcome in, JL Helt 1990. Appreciate you stopping in. What's going on? So you almost got to. Whoa, wow. He's the nicest, and I was hoping he'd appear in Cobra Kai. And he did. Yeah, dude. So. Definitely, I know you'll definitely have some good questions for him, man. So I'm excited. So, the Austin special for me, season 5, seasons 1 and 2 is sort of, yeah. Season 5 definitely has some really good moments and stuff like that. So, yeah, Dennis dying off screen. Yeah, that's something we'll have to definitely talk to Sensei Ford about, see what he thinks. So let me also make sure I'm not missing any messages from him. Oh yes. Okay, give me a second, guys. I need to make sure our guest has access, so I will be right back. All right, guys, let me get back here. Something like that. So, what do you think of seeing where Sam was training toward the All Valley Arena? Really cool. I thought it was really good. Really, really cool. Very Rocky 3 vibes. Also kind of Daniel and training Johnny vibes as well. So, yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was really, really cool. So, hi, stream. What's up, Chico? Yeah, it was really, really, really good seeing. Yeah, I just got an email from Sensei Ford, so she'll be here any second. So yeah, that's what we got going on. Yeah, show's gonna be really good. Let me make sure I do not miss him coming. Okay, cool. I'm always paranoid about like making sure I hit the notification. So first time on here and on your show. Well, thank you. Yeah, I normally do character analysis and stuff, but I've been really having a lot of fun with these interviews, honestly. These interviews have been really, really fun. I also do Easter egg breakdowns and stuff. I also cover other franchises such as Rocky and Creed. I do a little bit of WWE. Definitely going to be looking to get some anime too. I think Avatar: The Last Airbender is going to be my next project I'm going to dive into. So, let's see. Which season was your all-time favorite? Yeah, this one was just so. This one I was kind of saying just earlier because somebody had asked this, but it's so hard to pick. But honestly, I definitely love season 1. It's very close to the original in tone of the Karate Kid films. I also liked, season 2's great cliffhanger. Season 3 was very cool about how they started mending things and going back to Okinawa. Yeah, hold on. Let me make sure something real quick. Did I? Oh, he is here. Okay, cool. Give me 1 second, guys. All right, guys, he is here. Let me give him my best intro as I always do. So, going on 51 years as a martial artist. He's the host and executive producer of 52 Masters, the chief instructor of Kaizen Dojo. You also know him as Dennis de Guzman in Karate Kid Part 3 and Cobra Kai. Please welcome Sensei William Christopher Ford. Sensei, how are you this evening?
I am doing great, and thank you so much for having me, Stryfe the Warrior.
Yes.
Appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Of course. I'm gonna be honest with you. So I was let me change this layout real quick. I was actually nervous having you on, and I'm gonna explain why.
Okay.
Yeah. So so a lot of my peers that you've talked to with before. So of course Ken Cole, love him.
Oh, he's my buddy.
Yeah. Yes, Karate Kid Part 3 expert. We've done some videos before too. Yes, and then you've done so many great live streams with him, and not to mention, of course, Peter from Cobra Kai Companion, who I would call my interview sensei.
Another brother of mine.
Yeah,
he's awesome.
Yes, OG content creator. But I wanted to rise up to the challenge and also try to do a unique interview as much as possible too. So
Absolutely.
we're grateful to have you here. The chat's excited to see you. So yeah, it's been really cool. And just anytime I get to talk to anybody from, one of my favorite franchises is always cool. So.
Well, I appreciate it, and I first got notice of your channel when you did one. It was an analysis video, and you used Dennis de Guzman's
Yeah.
thumbnail split with Terry Silver, and I was like, wow, this guy is getting a lot of views on this, and I would attribute it mainly because of Terry Silver, but I'll go along for the ride. And I watched it, and I was just amazed at how detailed you are.
Thank you.
Every little nugget, and that's like some of the things I was like, wow, I didn't even know that, and I was very impressed. So it got my attention, and then I started seeing your name pop up, and I noticed that you went from analysis, because I imagine that the analysis videos must just be, it takes so much time and energy, and you're probably just like wasted when you finish one, and sometimes it is easier and maybe more fun to do the interview ones. So I do appreciate you having me on.
Of course. Yeah, I don't know if you have, I've said this in my live streams before too, but to kind of give you an idea. So usually when a new season drops, I watch it one time as a fan, then I watch for the Easter eggs, and then if I'm doing however many character analysis I'm doing that season, I rewatch the series while working on the video from like the lens from the other characters and stuff too. So there have been so many times I've taken a break from this channel and to get burned out and stuff like that. So yeah, no, it's thank you so much for the kind words. And that was one of my questions I was gonna ask, is like when you first saw it pop up. But one of my things with the Easter eggs, like anytime a character like shows up or returns, like for example, I think with season 5 I used Mike Barnes. So I was like, when I saw you in this in Dog in the Fight, I immediately knew it was you. So I was like, yeah, I gotta put Dennis on the thumbnail. And Silver Lining was like probably the most perfect, I think, tagline I've ever came up with the Easter egg video. So
that was very clever. And I, just by accident, that particular picture in that scene has become sort of a favorite of mine and a lot of people. I use it for avatars and things like that. And if they ever did a Dennis de Guzman action figure, I would hope that would be the picture that they used. It actually shows the tattoo and everything. So yeah, cool, man.
Definitely. The chat, I'm gonna read some comments from chat because we're all excited to see you. Actually, we'll go with this first question real quick. Melissa says, Sensei William Christopher Ford, Bonsai. It's great to see you on Stryfe's channel. If you had to pick one martial arts move that's your absolute favorite, it was a good question. What is it?
Absolute favorite? I think I'm gonna go with the sliding back fist into the lead leg side kick, because I grew up watching Bruce Lee movies and I always enjoyed seeing him knock his opponents back into oblivion with that particular kick, and I used it a lot in training, and I've kicked many a bag with that particular kick. I mean, it's hard to nail it down to just one, but in terms of karate, I'll go with the sidekick.
Okay, very good.
Thank you for that question, Melissa.
Yeah, that was actually one of the questions I was going to ask. Was like, what was one of your like favorite martial arts films of all time? So, I guess out of Bruce's, like, is it Enter the Dragon, Fist of Fury, The Big Boss? What's one of your? Do you have like a favorite out of any of his films?
Overall, it's Enter the Dragon.
Okay.
And I've got a soft spot for Fist of Fury, aka The Chinese Connection. Watched in the original Cantonese, which I don't speak, but for years I watched the dub versions of it. And I grew up watching dub versions of Shaw Brothers. I'd come home on Saturdays and it'd be black belt theater. And I grew up on all those Shaw Brothers that were dubbed. And I actually grew to really love that as part of the genre. That was what we grew up on. And then somebody said, hey, have you ever seen the non-dubbed version of Fist of Fury? It's in Cantonese. And I'm like, no, I haven't. So they gave me a copy of this. And I was like, this is kind of a different movie. So it has just a different tone. And it's really cool. But so Enter the Dragon overall, Fist of Fury, aka The Chinese Connection, is a close second. But what really got me into Bruce Lee and kind of changed my life in terms of my motivation for martial arts was when I was about 12 years old. I was a brown belt in my karate class, and my Sensei Richard Rubago, he said, "Hey, we've been contacted by Steve Fisher's school," and that was a friend of Sensei Rubago, was also a very renowned martial artist, and the movie studio is releasing Game of Death, and it's Bruce Lee's final movie. They took some footage of it and then they made this movie around it.
Right.
And we've been invited to go to see it for free, but we all have to wear our karate gis, and I was super excited about that. So even my mom put on a gi because she wanted.
Awesome.
She was my chaperone. So we went to down to Hollywood, and at that time it was a big deal. And Linda Lee, Bruce's widow, was there, and her daughter Shannon, and Brandon was there at the time, and they spoke. And he was very young. Now this is before he became a movie star. And then we went into the theater, and my mom bought me popcorn and a drink, and I was there with all my karate classmates, and it was just all these other schools that were there. And I didn't really know who Bruce Lee was other than seeing him in on the Batman show as Kato and things like that. I didn't understand his impact. And the lights went out and the audience went crazy, and then people were taking flash photography of the screen. And this whole opening montage that used John Barry's music and was very, very James. He did James Bond, and and the opening montage still holds up, I think, to this day. Made in the late 70s. Right. The rest of the movie is a bit atrocious,
Yeah.
But then when the real Bruce Lee shows up and he fights Dan Inosanto, and and he goes up the pagoda, the audience just went nuts again, and they're taking pictures. This is the first time that this footage has ever been revealed, and it was electric. And I left that theater. I was a Bruce Lee fan, and I couldn't get enough. My mom was buying me magazines and books, and I had all the posters. And then finally, after years of nagging me, I finally started practicing, because my mom would be like, "Hey, go practice." And I'd be like, "Yeah, and I was getting kind of burnt out. I probably was on the verge of quitting, but I think that movie kept me from doing that. And and I look back at it years now, and I'm like, oh, that was a pretty awful movie in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But because that was my introduction to the Bruce Lee movie,
right,
it still has a special place in my heart. So that's where we are with that.
Right. Yeah. I know there's times where they use footage from the other film. I think they even did a cutout on one of the scenes in the mirror. Yeah. But I've also seen the original unaltered footage too of how he's kind of going through, how the fight scenes are extended. And while we're on the subject, because I also noticed your shirt too. I love your shirt, by the way. I'm a huge Street Fighter fan. Yeah.
Let's give some love to Ryu, man.
Yeah,
Street
exactly.
Sagat's my favorite, but I like Ryu because he represents karate.
Mm-hmm.
But I do better with Sagat against my daughter. She kicks my ass 9 out of 10 times on Street Fighter, and we're using the old Nintendo version, with the pixel, the classic one.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And every once in a while I beat her, but I think she feels sorry for the old man, and she just kind of lets me, because she's a mean Chun-Li, man. She's just knocking me all over the place. But I have a love for this game.
Same, yeah. I've cosplayed as Ryu before. I've also done the evil Ryu and whatnot. And I also know too that Goju Ryu is also the basis of Ansatsuken, which is the style that Ryu and Ken practice in universe and stuff too. So it's kind of funny how it kind of ties back to Goju Ryu. But
that ties into Karate Kid. But we'll go into that when we're ready.
Oh yeah. I was gonna ask though, while we're on the subject, because one of the things I brought up as far as Game of Death within season 6 part 2, did you kind of get some of that similar vibe of Robby versus Axel as kind of Bruce Lee versus Kreese? Yeah. Okay, so not just me. All right, yeah.
Yeah, I got the vibe. I mean, obviously it was homage to Rocky IV and Ivan Drago, but I did see some of that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar versus Bruce Lee thing. Anytime you've got somebody that much bigger, how can you not compare it if you've seen that movie?
Exactly. So
yeah. Well, I'm glad you got it too. That's cool, man.
Yeah, of course. But yeah, so Sensei, I need some advice.
Okay.
I know you're married, so me and my girlfriend just got engaged. So I've been asking everybody that I know that's been married on the channel, any marriage advice you'd give to me or anybody out there that's married.
communication is really the key, and being able to put aside your own ego and just listen, actively, heart-centered listening to what your partner needs. I think, and that's true with any relationship, just being able to, okay, let me put myself in this person's shoes. Let me listen to, where they're coming from. And, it's not easy. There's going to be fights, there's going to be spats, so on and so forth, the disagreements. But, at the end of the day, you have to remember that love, and you have to remember the connection, and the ability to be compassionate with each other. And plus, I think gratitude and appreciation, it's very easy to take someone for granted when you've been with them for a while.
Right.
The honeymoon phase kind of fades out, so it's always important to, I think, ground yourself in gratitude. And it's tough. It's not easy, but it sure is worth it. And that's my advice for what it's worth. And I'm just speaking from the heart. But how long have you guys been engaged for?
Since December, but
Okay.
we've been together 4 years. So
that's it. Okay, good.
Thank you. So yeah, it's been really cool. She so I'll have to send this picture to you later, but we did my first kind of Karate Kid / Cobra Kai cosplay together. We actually did Chosen and Kumiko from Karate Kid Part 2. She actually did the kimono from scratch, and she's probably listening right now because she's like, you made me do this. Mainly it's just because so Martin Cole was coming down to Comic Palooza here in Houston.
Okay.
And I brought up the idea ahead of time and said, hey, it'd be cool if we do it. If we don't do it, cool and whatnot. But she, bless her heart, she got it done. The pictures are so cool too. She did kind of the kimono from scratch, and we altered a century gi to make it like that and stuff like that. So it was really cool. But yeah, it's been fun. We met through cosplay actually. I was pretty big in the cosplay scene before YouTube and stuff like that. So yeah, we definitely have some shared content. We've also done. So I know you said you've played Street Fighter on Super Nintendo. Did you ever play anything like Street Fighter Alpha by chance or no?
I never played any of the later versions of them, or the Capcom multiverse kind of versions where you're fighting like the X-Men or things like that. I've seen it played, and I'm not one who's been very good at video games, but that one, we were given a console by one of our cousins, and it was like sort of a bundle of all these old school Nintendo games with the original graphics and everything.
Oh wow!
There's kind of a gray console, and you could you could do double play, like 2 players,
Mm-hmm.
And I guess they sold them for a while a few years back, and everybody just snatched them up. Yeah. And we were lucky enough to be gifted one of them. And
that's awesome.
My daughter is much more versatile. She's she's able to play all of them, and I just kind of stick with Street Fighter.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Yeah. The reason I was asking because in Street Fighter Alpha, so it takes place before the World Warrior tournament featuring Street Fighter 2. So Ryu's a little bit younger, and he has this fangirl named Sakura. So she's also in, I think, Street Fighter 5, which is the shirt that you're wearing, and she's in the later version stuff too. So she's like a Ryu fanboy, so to speak, because she even learns how to do the Hadouken, the Shoryuken, and everything, stuff like that. So we've cosplayed that from stuff before, but yeah.
Well, I've been able to do the Hadouken and things like that purely by accident, and then I'm just like, what did I just do? And
right.
I don't replicate that,
Yeah.
So it's kind of a fun thing. You spend so many decades doing martial arts, and then it doesn't necessarily transfer to video games versions of it, but it sure is fun.
Oh yeah, definitely. Let me get some more comments from the chat here too. So thank you guys for congrats on the engagements. And also Melissa says, Sensei Ford, that's really sweet. You're describing the relationship that you have with your daughter, especially with karate, is very wonderful and loving. And then J-Helt 1990 says her 6-year-old just said to y'all that Cobra Kai never dies, and it's very true.
I think J-Halt is based in Florida, if I'm not mistaken, and I believe she told me that she got into an argument with her son because of Karate Kid 3, showing him what I looked like back then and trying to convince him that I'm the same dude. And I think she got into an argument with him where he insisted that, no, that is not the same guy. And but I don't know how that ended up. But Yes, I am the same guy.
Yeah. Yeah, they said, yeah, that is me, and we're still arguing about it. So, yeah, so yeah, if you see me looking over here, it's just I have notes and reading the chat too. So it's, I'm definitely paying attention. I just want to put that out there.
No.
Yeah.
I'm having a great time so
Okay,
far.
cool.
Thank you so much. I love interacting with fans also. Here's the thing. I worked in Karate Kid 3 back in 1989. I was 22 years old, and I thought, man, this is going to be my big break. And it wasn't. Then it was hard for me to get an agent. I didn't have long hair back then. I didn't really know myself. And so it was like a lot of working, different odd jobs and whatnot. And then finally, opening up a karate dojo for bread and butter. Being able to put food on the table. And what a blessing it is to be able to receive another opportunity to be in the Miyagi-verse 35 years. It's sort of like
right.
I kind of got my big break 35 years after I got my big break,
yeah.
So I've spent a lot of years working a lot of different jobs, and working for some bosses who weren't the nicest people,
Mm-hmm.
and, wondering like, oh my God, what am I doing here? Why am I doing this? But, you're put in situations and places because, okay, they're lessons to be learned. And sometimes you think you're ready for something and you're not. You have to learn these life lessons through your experiences. So as a result, I never got I haven't been a celebrity for most of my life. In fact, I'm not now. I'm a minor celebrity, if that. I just happen to be in a big franchise that's super famous. And so I'm always surprised, when Cobra Kai first came out and people were contacting me, like Tim Carr would he's a good friend of mine now, but he was respectfully sent me a message saying, hello, sir, how are you? I'm a big fan. I'm like, you're a fan of me? From where? Like
right.
Why would anybody be a fan of me? And then I found out there is kind of like a category of super fans who just like, they know every character, just like the big three,
right.
Ron, Josh, and Hayden, they know every character, they know, every movie, and so, then I started to understand that's like how big and how serious the fandom is with Karate Kid and then later Cobra Kai. But to my point, I just I've been a regular person for most of my life, so I relate with the fans because I'm one of y'all. What I mean?
Right.
So I like to connect with the fans because again, it's if it wasn't for you all, the fans, Cobra Kai never would have become what it's become. It would have gotten the first season on YouTube, and then that would have been it. So it is because of the support of the fans that it became what it is, and then I'm able to speak with you here today. And it sounds silly and it sounds corny, but it's the truth.
No, it's 100% relatable, and of course, we thank you too as the fans for coming back and giving us these memorable performances and things. And I 100% relate because like when I started the channel almost 4 years ago, I was a delivery driver. I was just doing this in my spare time, and I had put out the very first like analysis video I put out was when I was comparing Mr. Miyagi, the elements of Mr. Miyagi to Johnny, because that's how the show was writing him. That just took off out of nowhere, and all of a sudden I was a YouTube partner, and I was just like, wow, this people actually like what I have to say. So it just and there have been times too where like I've taken breaks from the channel because I needed to focus more on work because I couldn't do stuff on the channel. So I 100% relate to what you're saying, and I totally get it. So,
well, I just I try to I want to be grateful, it's for everything in my life, and when people reach out to me, I do my best to respond back, even and I try not to. I haven't gotten too many trolls, but occasionally, but. I even joke with them sometimes, and on occasion, I've actually brought them over to my side.
That's awesome. Yeah.
But it's all good. You can't get offended by, if you're going to be on the internet, you got to have thick skin. You can't be offended by everybody. Everyone has their opinion, and it's valid, most of the time. But, every once in a while, you got to kind of like, throw a zinger back and just kind of puts, every once in a while, somebody got to be put in check. But, for the most part, it's just, let it be what it is.
Exactly. Yeah. Chad agrees. One thing I wanted to ask you, kind of a unique question. So, the headshot we use for your promo image, I'm kind of curious. It's such a great image because you have like the gloves on and you have like I think a bonsai tree in the back. What was like, that was something that it reminds me of another video game character, which is why I'm asking, but I'm just kind of curious the story behind that photo.
Okay, so oops,
Oh, you're
a
fine.
few years ago, I signed with an agency called Aqua Talent, and it's my agent is Courtney Peldon. She's wonderful, and she said, "Hey, you kind of need to get new headshots, and headshots are your photos that you use, and they use these to digitally send out them to when there's a casting notice. An agent will submit their client, and it usually it's done electronically, and then
Right.
there's your headshot, and I have several, and so this was one of them that I took. And when I went to see this photographer, um, Anthony Mangiello, I think his name is, I said, I want to do one that's kind of charactery, but it's got a little bit of juxtaposition of two different things. So
Hmm.
I got the nice shirt on, the tie is kind of undone, but I got the hand wraps.
Right.
And the hand wraps were actually given to me by a very famous, iconic martial artist named Benny Urquidez, who was known for being a kickboxer, but he also fought Jackie Chan on
Oh,
screen.
Benny the Jet.
Yeah, Benny the Jet.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Those wraps were actually given to me by him
Oh,
because
that's
I
awesome.
did an episode of 52 Masters with him.
Right. 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 Yeah.
And he gave them to me. So we took this picture, and I've got, I just thought this is kind of a cool, juxtaposition of things, because it says a lot of things without saying it, just by the position. And it's like, oh, he's a fighter and he's got the glove, but yet he looks like he just came from the office. So that picture, for some reason, just resonated with a lot of people. And I sent that picture to LetsBeWater, Mark Kerr, who does all the
Right.
fantastic art, based in
Mhm.
the UK. And I said, hey, I kind of like to do, this was before Cobra Kai, before I even knew I was going to be on Cobra Kai. And I asked Mark to create something that, using this picture, that has got a Cobra Kai feel to it. Turn me into Dennis with this particular picture. And so he did, with the Shoji screens in the back. And I said, can you add a little blood to the hand wraps, which weren't there originally?
Right.
And he put a Cobra Kai buckle on my belt, and he gave me a tattoo, Cobra Kai tattoo, but he put it on my forearm. And
Ah.
this was before I was even hired.
Right.
You see, this was before, Dennis was officially like written into season 6. So there was a lot of foreshadowing going on there, and then if you look at the Shoji screens in the background, right,
Right.
they've got holes in them. So there's some Easter eggs in there, and it's in Terry's mansion, if you look at that. So he sent that back to me, and I was like, oh, this is amazing. And this is sort of like the picture that I was using to sign autographs and things like that, give it out to the fans. And I don't know if it influenced the big three or not, but they wanted to put a tattoo up here to have it reveal that I was part of Cobra Kai, and just sort of the way that they revealed who I was in stages. But that's the origin of that photo, and it's become one of my go-to kind of iconic ones, one that I love to sign for the fans, that I will send them. But also, it just was sort of a lot of foreshadowing of things to come, but I didn't know it at the time.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, it's really a nice and interesting picture. And are you familiar with the Double Dragon video game franchise?
Oh yeah, Double Dragon.
Yeah, so there's a character in the NES port of Double Dragon 2: The Revenge. I think his name is Right Arm. And the reason in that picture kind of reminded me of that, because he, in the sprite, you can see he's wearing like a karate gi with those gloves. So it kind of reminded me of that for a second. So I always thought it was maybe kind of like fighting game / Double Dragon inspired. So yeah, I love that picture. It's really, really cool. So
I appreciate that. Thank you. And Mark Kerr did a really great job with that. He's amazing. He's very soft spoken, doesn't want to take credit for it, but he's
great work.
Yeah, that guy's the man. And I've seen a lot of great fan art come out of the fandom as well. So there's been some amazing fan posters. Mark created something before season 5 hit, and it was a fan created thing that he did, and he put me as one of the people.
The senseis.
And it's funny, and then people were like, is there something that you can't tell us that you want to tell us? And I'm like, nope, I'm not in this show. I am not in this show. I can tell you that with 100% certainty. It was very nice of Mark to put me in there. And I thought I was done. I didn't really think that I was going to be in it, except for the flashback they showed in season 5 with Mike Barnes. They
Right.
show me, in the hot tub scene. Not
Yeah.
in the hot tub, but when Silver summons the boys,
Right.
Snake and. So I thought, well, that's it. They did contact me. They asked me permission to use that. I got a little bit of money for that, and I really thought that was going to be it. And I said, well, technically, I am in Cobra Kai, but it's just not as the nearly 60-year-old version of myself. And then things changed after the strike. So
Yeah. That's
that's
crazy.
where we are with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Somebody just said too. I wanted to point this out. Let's see. Somebody said, where was it at? I just saw it here. Yeah, you have a lot of fans. There is a YouTuber in Spain who wants a Dennis spinoff, and I want the same thing too. So yeah, like the established Miyagi-verse. There's so many ways, so many things they could do, like with spinoffs and one-offs and whatnot. It's just amazing. And that's something I definitely want to touch on later because I do remember you talking about like your backstory that you came up with for Dennis when you talked with Ken Cole.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, that's something I want to touch on.
Thanks for chiming in on that too.
Oh,
That was when Ken said, "Oh, by the way, Stryfe the Warrior is one of the preeminent."
He's too kind.
And I went, "Oh no, I know who Stryfe the Warrior is," and that's how this whole thing kind of got started.
yeah, it's great. Ken's so great, man. He always, like, every time like I've joined him for live streams, like, yeah, one of the titans of Cobra Kai, one of the experts. I'm like, I'm not an expert, man. I'm just a guy with opinion, but like it's still flattering nonetheless, and that I love Ken, man. He's definitely a really great content creator. I'm always nudging him like, hey, you need to do another live stream. Let's do something, man. Let's and stuff. I know he's working on some other stuff right now, and he's probably watching and stuff. So.
He's one of the greats. One of the I met him at a cafe in Gardena called Gardena Bowl through our friend Peter,
mm-hmm.
and also my good friend in karate, sister Pialani. You probably heard her name.
Mm-hmm.
Pialani. She's wonderful. And Ken was just such a nice guy, and I said, hey, let me know if you need anything. He goes, you think you may want to ever be a guest on my podcast? And I'm like, yeah. And he was like, really? And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And him and Drew,
right?
Drew is and also fantastic.
He's really cool,
fantastic dude. And so I just kind of struck up a friendship, genuine friendship. Ken and I are buddies. He went to Atlanta and he did that little mini documentary behind the scenes, and,
right.
and it turned out fantastic.
Yeah.
So there's some great people in the fandom that I've met that have actually become friends with him.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking of camaraderie, I wanted to ask, because I have a clip I'll show here for the fans and whatnot. How did you meet? I want to make sure I'm saying the right title, Grandmaster Darryl Vidal, because you guys were on 2 different movies. Y'all hadn't really worked on screen. So I was kind of curious. And you also did an episode of 52 Masters, which I'll be showing a clip of. But yeah, I was kind of curious how you met him.
Darryl Vidal was a karate competitor at the same time I was back in the 80s.
Oh, okay.
And I used to see him, and he would do these forms, and he would do stuff like, he would extend his sidekick and it'd be like at face height, and he'd leave that thing out for 10 seconds, and then bring it back in. And he was just very agile. And we became, just every time I saw him at a tournament, we were always friendly. And I was always secretly hoping I wouldn't have to compete against him, because it was like, okay, well, if Darryl's here, maybe I'll get a second or a third,
right?
Because he was that good. And then I remember him saying to me one day, there was this was before Karate Kid, the first Karate Kid, and he says, "Hey, I'm going to be in a movie," and I'm like, "You are?" And he says, "Yeah, it's called The Karate Kid." And he said they cast me at this tournament, and they're doing and I'm one of the fighters, and I'm like, "Oh, dude, that's amazing." And who had any idea that Karate Kid was going to be what it,
right.
what it was going to become, what it became. And I remember sitting in the theater and watching this thing, and when Darryl came on screen and he did that triple tornado kick, I was like, that's Darryl. And I'm like, that's my buddy. I know, I know it sounds silly, but I was like, I know him. That's my friend. And it was clear how much experience he had, and it was clear about his skill. It was just like, oh, this dude should be winning the whole tournament. Look at how good he is. It's obvious, you know. And to his credit, also, it takes a lot of skill to be able to make other people look good and to allow the actors who are not martial artists, maybe, or at least not at his level, to win and to defeat him, and and to make it believable.
Right.
And also, let me mention, Ron Thomas, Sensei Ron Thomas. I watched your interview with him, and
awesome.
he was a real jiu-jitsu black belt, but he had to kind of keep it a secret, until the story that Pat Johnson finally says, something, and Ron had to let it out. But Ron's a good friend of mine, and I like him real well. As he's the real deal, and he was on 52 Masters, and he was putting me in some neck cranks and putting some pain on me, just because that's what we martial artists do. Is like, hey, can you try that on me? Can I just get And, our running joke is like, my neck, don't touch my neck, And so with Ron Thomas, it's like, hey, don't let Ron Thomas touch your neck, man, because he'll mess you up.
yeah, guys, it's it was really cool to just and also I'm speaking with Grandmaster Vidal too Sunday, so it's awesome to be able to talk to all you guys and whatnot. But I do want to show. So for those of you guys that aren't aware, and I definitely want to ask Sensei Ford more about the project as well. 52 Masters was a show that, as Sensei Ford was approaching his 52nd birthday, he wanted to learn 52 different styles of martial arts. And one of those episodes he did with Grandmaster Darryl Vidal. Let me share my screen with you real quick and with the stream. Or let's see. Okay, you're able to see this, correct?
Yes.
All right, cool. So, and what I really liked about this too, because I'm just now getting into martial arts in Taekwondo.
Oh, cool.
How fast you picked up the form that he was showing you. I believe here too. Was it kata that he was showing you, just to make sure I got the terminology?
Yeah, the Japanese Okinawan terminology for a preset form with fighting moves, a formal exercise. They're oftentimes called in Japanese Okinawan arts. They're called kata.
Okay.
And it just basically means kind of form, or formal exercise, pre-choreographed.
Gotcha. Okay. So yeah, we're gonna take a look at this quick clip, which is really cool.
And my feet are forward. Yeah. Okay. Heels together. First step through the cat stance. Front kick. I'll call it palm strike. Step back, pistol poke. From here, we're going to bring the knee up, just double clap, and do spears to the ankle. And then step back into a C-strike. Downward block. Spin again, double downward block. That's it.
Interesting. I like it.
Yes?
Can we do it again?
Yes.
Let's
You want to run through it again, or you want to go through it?
let's run through it one more time.
Okay, just kind of soft. Ready?
Very cool. I like that. It's very cool.
Good.
Yes.
I like your snap. I mean, it takes so long to develop what you're doing automatically in all your movement. And it's interesting about the mixture. Like I said, there's a little bit softer movement here.
Yeah.
So in some of these, I'm not hitting it as hard because we're trying to flow that. Here, hard, yes. All those movements you nailed.
I see similarities in what I do with my Shorin Ryu and what you just taught me.
Okay.
So it really resonated with me.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Well, your balance is right on. All your stances are there. So.
Okay, great. So
Yeah.
I'm being a good student.
Absolutely.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, and guy, I need to explain something for the chat too, because so I, as I just mentioned, I get into Taekwondo, and so I just made it to yellow belt black stripe this end of January. Thank you.
That's all you need, because that's the Cobra Kai colors. So you just quit there, unless the next belt is black belt with a yellow stripe, then you can keep going.
Right. So, but yeah, it's like forms too. Like it can take, especially if you've never done it for the first time. So what I was really amazed about that clip was the fact that you picked up that form so quickly, and then how, like, just how fast your hands were, and like the gi snaps and stuff like that. So I really wanted to share that with the chat too, because I was like, you know, a lot of people, and we had some people in the chat too, even before you got here, is like, yeah, if you've ever seen, you know, Sensei Ford put in the work, he puts in the work. So it's, it was really cool to see you guys. Well, now also knowing that you guys also used to compete in tournaments back in the day, that also kind of makes that, to me, that makes watching that clip a little bit more full circle, and whatnot. So, oh, we have somebody in the chat that says, David H. Kinder, welcome in, by the way. He says, I took karate from Master Sensei Fumio Demura. Is that how you say it? Demura?
Yeah.
From 1991, got to yellow belt and 2 stripes. So, yeah, I was really impressed at just how, like, you just picked it up like second nature. So I'm gonna have a couple different questions there. Is it just like learning, being a student that long? Is that kind of what makes you more adaptable to kind of picking up things like, or what would you, I guess, how would you explain that if that makes sense? So
Yeah, that's part of it. It's you know, I guess it's kind of like, you know, the move. You know, there's only so many ways you can move. You know,
Okay.
and I've been very open about the various possibilities of human movements. You know, so because I've cross trained, also I have a very, very strong foundation in my karate, but I've also taken a look at how other styles move, and because I'm open-minded, I'm not necessarily emotionally attached to my system. It allows me to kind of, you know, I can imitate it, you know, fairly quickly. I also really enjoy training, and Darryl's a good teacher, you know, so
Indeed.
I think combined with all of that, you know, I have a thicker gi, so it snaps. So on camera, it almost sounds like we're doing
Yeah.
kung fu theater, you know.
Right.
But yeah, because I'm really enjoying it, also it's fun to me. So, you know, that was a lot of fun, and you know, when you're having fun, you pick it up faster. But yeah, it's just you know, you do it enough times, you know, it's like anything, you know, you build a skill, and then pretty soon it's like, oh, you know, some of it is very easily transferable to another skill. Now, like, let's say, you know, when I was younger, I was super awkward, super shy, very clumsy, wasn't very good at sports. And it wasn't until at some point around the time when I saw Game of Death, and around the time when I started putting into practice, that's when I started getting better. And then I noticed that then it sort of transferred to other sports. You know, not completely. I'm still terrible at miniature golf. You know, I mean, I do windmill at the end. It's terrible.
Every time.
But you know, it's super helpful. But you know, I think it's also helpful that I've tried to maintain myself. You know, in my latter years, I'm approaching 60, and my mother is Japanese Okinawan. She's from Japan. Part of it is my genetics, but I think also part of it is because I have tried to, you know, maintain myself physically and so on and so forth. So so far, I've been very, very fortunate, and it helps when you're learning fight choreography, when when you're going in to learn something, and somebody says, okay, bang, 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 and then you can kind of pick it up. You know, it's still difficult, but it's easier for us to perform it in a short amount of time.
I can relate to that, because it's kind of like, because I also play drums. I just started playing drums again after 10 years. I was kind of like a self-taught musician. So it's kind of like if you practice enough, it's almost kind of like either sight reading or like learning things by ear. Like, because now there's some songs like with similar drum beats I can kind of pick up and things like that. So I can kind of understand what you're talking about when you're saying how it's like transferable and things like that. Melissa wanted to know, well, one, it's incredible. And yes, I do have to agree, it was incredible. Are there any forms of karate that you do feel spiritually connected to?
Well, you know, coming from an Okinawan karate background, you know, Okinawa being the birthplace of karate, not the birthplace of martial arts, but specifically karate, and then it, you know, spread to other places. You know, karate has kind of become an umbrella term when they say karate. You know, when I say karate, I'm specifically talking about something either Okinawan or Japanese. You know,
right.
So, you know, I'm always going to have a fondness for the Okinawan arts just because that's where I started from. You know, so Shorin Ryu, Goju-Ryu, Uechi-Ryu, you know, those original Okinawan karate styles. Japanese styles like shitoryu and kyokushin. There's just a great love for that. But I also like Muay Thai very much.
Okay.
Sagat. I love the elbows and the knees, and the kicking with the legs with the shins. I have a great fondness for wrestling, and I'm no good at it, but wrestling and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu are two kind of pillars of MMA that you kind of need to have. A big fan of boxing. Love Muhammad Ali. I still feel he's the greatest of all time.
Mm-hmm.
And I like it all. I like things that also are very practical. So what I try to do is find the movements in my karate kata. I'm trying to see, okay, these are very beautiful, but where is the practicality? And oftentimes the practicality is hidden between point A and point B. So this is the starting point, this is the ending point. What sometimes we don't realize is that, well, between this point and this point, there were three other things that are there that maybe are hidden. One might be a grappling move. One might be striking with this part of the arm instead of the fist. So there's all this hidden stuff in there that you can kind of like, and sometimes you'll find that by going to other arts and going, oh my gosh, now that I have this other frame of reference, I can see that what I was looking for in something else is also kind of already there.
Okay.
But I always look for the bridging the gap between traditional karate and modern urban combatives. That's kind of the thing I'm into. And if you'll notice in my fight scene with Ralph in Dog and Fight, when we first encounter each other, I'm doing 4 or 5 moves that are taken right from my kata. Because in the script it says he takes up a stance. And so I asked Don Lee, the choreographer, I said, can I do this? Kind of showed him, and it's like, oh yeah. And Don Lee happens to be a Shorin Ryu practitioner also, and he goes,
okay.
I like that. So, one of the things I did was, my hands were up like this. If you recall, when I first encounter Ralph, right? He escapes from the dog cages, and that thing, and I'm like this, and that actually comes from one of my Okinawan kata, and what I did is doing my background work on the character. There's very little to go off of except for my own imagination. So, I was just writing stuff and what I thought. And I'm like, well, if Dennis studied with silver, he would have, learned silver style. And he probably would have added some other things into it as well. And one of the things that, when you put your hands up like this, you're kind of like trying to bait your opponent to come in, but you're also making yourself a little bit bigger than what you are, and so to me that reminded me of like a cobra flaring its hood. So I was trying to incorporate, okay, would that be something like maybe Cobra Kai would do, but hasn't been shown yet? It's like maybe an older thing that Silver taught me, that it was like, you make yourself big by putting your hands up, you lure your opponent in, and that would make sense in terms of being it like, making it more kind of based on the actual movements of a cobra. And you didn't see it as much, but I was trying to kind of move back and forth in my movement, never staying still. It's hard to see in the editing, but that's what I was trying to do. Is it was almost like swaying like a cobra, where you're trying to like feint and come in, before you strike. So all of those things were kind of things that ended up being, that I tried to incorporate within my character as I was trying to build who is this Dennis de Guzman as he's being rebranded and reintroduced into the current Miyagi verse.
That's awesome, and thank you for the super chat. But before I address the super chat really quick, we're already 40 minutes in. I'm okay. I want to make sure you're okay. I thank you again for being flexible with your schedule. How are we on time?
I'm good as long as the audience hasn't fallen asleep yet. And
no, the audience is, and this is all really fascinating stuff, because me, I do character analysis. So I'm always like, I always love hearing things about how the actor approaches, especially when you're talking about the keeping your hands up and the movement of the cobra. I hadn't even thought of that. That's
yeah.
so
if you go back, if some of the people are going, well, what's he doing? Well, why is he putting his hands up here?
Right.
But in modern urban combatives, we have there's something that's called like a non-violent, open-handed posture, and it's oftentimes used for like de-escalating something. It's been referred to sometimes it's called the fence, or sometimes it's called the conversation stance, or it's a non-violent posture.
Okay.
some of the big names in self-defense have referred to that, and to me it was just like, okay, well, we have it in our karate, and I'm going to use it to make my look. So I'm going to try to intimidate Daniel, and right. As if my long hair and I was already intimidating him, but I wanted to kind of incorporate something cool into it, so at least it gets the fans talking. Either like, what the hell's he doing, or I get that, or that's really cool. I wonder what he's doing, and then I did other stuff, right. And again, it's in my kata. It's in Okinawan Karate. Like right before we fight, I do this. I go like this, and I go like this. And what I was trying to do is, okay, these are the Cobra Fangs. So I brought this here, and then I had the Cobra Fangs ready to attack. Okay, so it was never used in the fight, but I used it more like a posture kind of thing. So people like yourself can go, that's really cool. Let me go back and look at that again, and then you go, that makes sense, and it makes it hopefully on the third or fourth watching a little bit more enjoyable and educational.
Yes, definitely. And so let me. We have a super chat. You Got Us the Poet says, new sub. Hey, William Christopher Ford. What I love about them bringing you back was the surprise element. Your character was perfect, and you as a man are an inspiration. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, and I appreciate you, and I'm a fan of yours as well. So let's keep on keeping up with the good fight, and thank you so much for watching the show. I appreciate you. I also wanted to go back to the earlier chat with David mentioning Fumio Demura.
I was going to ask about any memories from him as well.
He was a mentor of mine. I never really studied with him beyond a couple of classes, and actually doing the 52 Masters on him, and then also a documentary that I did years ago called The Last Dojo. But he passed away a couple years ago, I think. And he was obviously a big inspiration in the Miyagi-verse, because he was his character was part of the inspiration for the Miyagi character that Pat Morita used. The way that Demura Sensei talked, his kindness, his wisdom. I mean, if you were to pick like the epitome of a karate master who was Miyagi, he was the real Miyagi in that sense. Now, that being said, the founder of a style called Goju Ryu, which is an Okinawan style that kind of translates as like soft, hard style. It's kind of circular, but then it hits hard, was Chojun Miyagi. So Miyagi was kind of an amalgamation of Pat Morita, Fumio Demura, Chojun Miyagi, and maybe some other influences that came about, and then recently Brian Takahashi, who's my really, really good buddy. Have you had him on your show yet?
We're working it out. We're set to talk hopefully Tuesday still.
Oh, he's a great guy.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk with him as well.
Yeah, he's a deep brother, and he's really I think you'll have a good time with him. But we connected right away, and I took some of the BTS photos of him while he was on set, and he's got some good stories too. So we're looking forward to that one. So anyway, I just wanted to acknowledge David.
Sure.
Demura. I mean, even if you only made it to yellow belt, that's okay. I mean, you did something. You can always pick it back up again. And you don't have to study for 50 years to get benefit from martial arts. Even if you study for 3 months or whatever, if you get benefit out of it, it makes you feel better. If you're more confident, then it does its job, and it'll do it again when you need it. I always like it when I can see people who have studied for years and years and years, but even a little bit can be helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely want to do a couple comments on that, because also Sensei Demura was the stunt double for Mr. Miyagi in the movies as well, notably in the Halloween fight. But yeah, fantastic job, and of course, especially in the Karate Kid Part 3 versus Silver and Kreese. Really great.
I was actually on set that day, and when they shot that was pretty cool. And Sensei Demura was the man.
Definitely. Yeah. And then, as you're talking about martial arts too, like yesterday, I was kind of having a bad day. And so I was really looking forward to class and just being able to kind of just get it out of my system and, and stuff like that. It's so and I've told this to people too, because so I'm 35. I just turned 35 in January.
Oh, congratulations. Happy birthday.
Thank you. And, it was one of those things too, where it was like, I was kind of nervous at first, because I was one of the only adults in the class, but then it's just then all of it just, it becomes easier, because you start letting everything go, and then you going in with an open mind and being humble and whatnot too. Because like I'm learning from black belts that are way younger than me, but I still respect them. Address them as master and bow to them and everything. So it's really awesome and humbling too. And then last night actually, there was a guy who had just made it to, I think, white belt black stripe, and he was like an adult I hadn't seen before. And I was like, hey man, like it's really cool to have like another adult in the class too. And we were like, because they were having us do like kind of like drills of like running and stuff like that too. So me and him were racing. So it was really cool. Yeah, it's just it's so hard to explain, but like I encourage anybody that like if you get into martial arts, whatever kind of benefit, whether it's for self-defense or you just want to release some stress, it's so awesome, especially if you have a good teacher. So
absolutely. People have asked me, what do you look for in a martial arts school? I'm looking for a martial arts instructor. And they might not live near me, and I always say, try to find an instructor that you resonate with, that you like, that you feel connected with, you like the way he teaches, you like what he teaches, and if that's the case, that's more important than the style, in my opinion. I think it's more important that you have some kind of connection.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that's makes a lot of sense, and I hope a lot of the chat definitely gets that too.
Well, how you were saying that
Sure.
you humble yourself. That's very important.
Yes.
A lot of people, it can be difficult to humble yourself sometimes, right? Our ego gets in the way. It's being able to put on the white belt, either metaphorically or actually in real life, and be okay with that, because you learn more from your mistakes than you will from your wins oftentimes. And it's just a matter of like, okay, I'm going to be a white belt today, what can I learn? And my greatest teachers are my students, the kids that come in, and probably the greatest lesson they teach me is patience, because it's reminded every day. But when I see somebody who came in who didn't know anything, and they're doing something, and then they're doing it well, but more importantly, when I see their character be strengthened, when they are more confident, when they are just becoming better people, that is very gratifying to me. So, they teach me, they remind me, they ground me. If it wasn't for my families and my students, I wouldn't be able to say that I'm a sensei. I wouldn't be able to do what I do, So I am grateful to all of them for, if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be able to do what I do, and just like if it wasn't for the Cobra Kai Karate Kid fans, I wouldn't be here either, because there wouldn't have been a season 6, there wouldn't have been a season 5, so,
right.
We it's important to be grateful and to be humble and to be respectful and to show, gratitude in whatever way you can every day. It just makes life better.
Right. And I'm glad you kind of talked about that too, because one of the questions I was going to ask you was what drives you as a teacher? Like, what's your purpose? So like hearing you talk about that too was just really, really awesome. I always, because that was something I also asked Brandon H. Lee. I actually had him on recently too, because he still teaches, here and there and whatnot. So I always love like kind of hearing answers like that, because like I had even thought about like if I, when I make it to black belt.
Absolutely.
I thought about maybe even like instructing too, because like that would really kind of help my inner self, because I would then be the person that I needed when I was younger, of like instilling that self-confidence and the respect for others and things like that too. So
that's stuff that's built over time, and through consistency, and here's the thing, you just keep showing up.
Right.
Just keep showing up, and then you're like, hey, my belt changed color, because you're putting in the work. And it doesn't always seem like we're advancing. Sometimes we want to see that,
right,
and sometimes it's like, and then you're like this, you're on the plateau, but then the plateau's going up and up and up and up and up, and you don't realize that all of a sudden, and you do that long enough, and it's like one day you look out and you go, hey, I can see the city, I can see the mountains, I can it's like, wow, I kind of made it to the top. So it's that patience. That's another thing that is important to learn, patience. Not everything is, some delays are not denials, and that's true with martial arts, and that's true with acting, and whatever it is, we want it right now, and sometimes it's like, what, we just got to put in the time and keep, like, be willing to be really bad at something, be willing to be laughed at, so on and so forth, until you're really good at something, and that can make all the difference in the world.
That's exactly. And especially, and not just martial arts too, but like even like some of the stuff you're talking about, like even with my YouTube channel, there are times I had been plateaued and stuff and then instead of like kind of looking like, oh, I wish it could be here, here, and here. It's always important to reflect on how far you've come too. So yeah, great.
I'll tell you what, man. Like, listen, I started YouTube, some years ago, and in the YouTube world, I've only got almost like 14,000 subscribers in the YouTube world. It's like that's it, and then it's like, well, it's been a slow growth, and there were times when I was like, how is it that this person over here is doing this, and they've got like 500,000 subscribers, and I have to be reminded that's them. That has nothing to do with me. Just do you, and you'll get there. And you don't have to have 500,000, 100,000 subscribers to have a successful channel. And I used to get really bummed out. It'd be like, oh man, only like 100 people watched my video, and then it's like, well, 100 people watched your video.
Exactly.
And who knows how many of them may have been not only entertained but educated and empowered and impacted. So it'd be like if you showed up at a place and 100 people showed up to hear you speak. I'd be like, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of keeping things in perspective, right?
Right. 100%.
So, yeah. But keep on doing what you're doing, because I think you're very empowering. I got inspired, and I was nervous about coming on your show, so I was like,
really?
I gotta make sure I shave. I gotta brush my hair. Let me put on my Street Fighter shirt, because you might be impressed with that.
Oh yeah.
So you don't see, everybody has this sort of like Instagram public persona, where we're all trying to look perfect and cool, and like filters and everything like that. Like, well, I'm just gonna be me. I'm gonna show up as me. And at the end of the day, I think we realize it's like, well, this is what people like. They want something that they can relate to, like the guy who's goofy and the guy who like forgets stuff, and it's like, oh yeah, sorry about that, and that's relatable. I think as long as you're treating people well, they can get behind that, because that's most of us.
Exactly. Some quick comments from the chat. Actually, my buddy Forze, my mod, he says, I'm impressed with your hair care. So yeah, I had to say that too. So Knuckle Duster Buster says 100 real people watched your videos. That's very true.
Absolutely, sir.
And then Yugata says, I'm surprised. I love how surprised a lot of YouTube reactors were. If you watch that kind of stuff, some of them were really floored that Dennis returned. Yeah, it's always cool, like when you have like the fans and whatnot. Harrison says, sign the application, LaRusso. And then JL Helt says, when it comes to success and achieving goals, never give up and always keep going. It's I can't talk now. It's a pretty good motto to live by. Probably a good sign for me to drink some water. So yeah,
100% agree with that. I going back to Dennis's return. When I've talked about this on other channels, Peter's channel and Ken's channel, and I talked about the dream I had, and I didn't believe in precognitive dreams, but I had this dream about I was in my dojo and cleaning the dojo in the dream, and then I moved a chair and there was a cobra right there, and it went up and it flipped its hood and hissed at me, and I was just like, oh my god! And in my dream, I'm thinking as me in the dream going, I can't start class with a cobra in the room. This is dangerous. And then I thought, I know what I'll do. I'll call the veterinarian. And I did in the dream. And they said, no worries, we're going to send over a mongoose and you're going to be okay. And I'm like, okay, good, no problem, because I got to start my class in a few minutes. It's really dangerous. And then I looked and the cobra was gone. I'm like, oh no, where did it go? And then I woke up. So that was one of those weird dreams. I was like, that's really strange. I go drink my coffee and I check my messenger, and it's like Josh Heald, one of the big three of Cobra Kai. He says, hey, I'd like to ask you a question about karate. May I email you from my personal email address? And I'm like, yeah. And I'm thinking he wants to ask me maybe a technical question about, karate or something. And he says, hey, we're in the writer's room and we kind of came up with a clever, fun, interesting way to bring Dennis back. Are you interested? And I'm like, what do you got? And then it was, well, he's still going to be bad. He's still going to be working for silver. And just the way that he's brought back and things are revealed not at once. Daniel doesn't recognize him. And the way that, the super fans might know me right away from people who follow me, but most of the world is going to be like, well, who the hell is this guy? And why has he got a tattoo? And, oh, maybe he does work for Kreese. And then they're able to bring back the steam room thing, and then they do the flashback, and then the audience is going, "Oh my God, it's that guy!" And some people are going, "No, it's not that guy. They don't even look the same. It's 35 years ago." But I just love the way that they were able to kind of like layer that in. But more than anything, I wanted to be a bad guy because I've been told, and I believe this, I'm kind of the polar opposite of what Dennis de Guzman is. Like you meet me and it's like, you're completely different than the character you're
Right.
like, well, I hope so, because Dennis de Guzman has done a lot of bad things. I mean, he's kidnapped, he's assaulted, he has assaulted with a deadly weapon, he's vandalized, he's probably done burglary. I think he committed murder. I think he attempted murder. There's all this thing. It's like, maybe Dennis isn't the best fighter, his character, but he's up there with Silver in terms of actually getting his hands dirty. He's a pretty bad dude, and I wanted to be that bad dude who just like was. I'm the guy who's like, look, I'm the dude who's doing all the bad stuff. I mean the bad stuff.
Right. Yeah, and to kind of follow up on your and thanks for the super chat, Knuckle Duster Buster. I'm gonna get to that here in a second. Yeah, it seems like all the people that play bad guys are really nice. Like Robert Patrick, I've met him before. Terminator 2, super nice guy. Took time with his fans. Of course, Billy Zabka, I've met him. Super nice. Yeah. Met Martin Coe. So yeah, it's super nice. Duster says, loving this interview. What was it like being recognized in the late 80s and 90s after the release of Karate Kid 3? Did they ever talk about sequels with you before Hilary Swank Karate Kid 4 came out?
No, I wasn't even in the conversation. Knuckle Dusters, right?
Yeah, Knuckle Duster Buster.
Knuckle Duster Buster. Yeah. That's great. No, I wasn't even in the conversation for a long time, and that's why I'd worked so many different jobs that I felt like I was pretty much forgotten, and it was basically it was like, okay, it's something I can put on my resume. But every once in a while, I would be somewhere, and like somebody would come up to me, "Excuse me, were you in Karate Kid 3?" And I was just like, like, who are you? How do you know this? Every once in a while, you come across, those fans who actually recognize you.
Right.
And the talk had been maybe, just like, maybe it's like, maybe I could have a cameo in Cobra Kai. And I thought, wouldn't it be fun? And like I was walking out of Home Depot with a Shoji screen or something, and Ralph and I kind of like cross paths, and we both kind of do a double take, and we keep walking, and I would have been kind of cool with that. And I joked with that with Josh and John, and they were like, oh, no, because I have maintained my martial arts, and because of the way I look with my long hair, and when I grow a porn stash, I look very menacing, and I have this resting face, where it's like I'm not mad, I'm just thinking about something, but I can have that very intense look, and I just can very easily do it. And it's because of that they said, oh, we wanted to write you in a way that we felt was suitable to your abilities, and because you've been able to maintain yourself, if you hadn't and you look completely different, then yeah, maybe we would have, done a Freddie Fernandez kind of cameo or something like that. But I was very, very happy to know that my first thing back, I get a rematch with Ralph, and I'm looking at it going, okay, this is going to be longer than the first one. And when they're choreographing it, it's like, I get a couple of knees. I'm going to get him back for those knees he got me with, that kind of thing. And I'd asked them, I said, hey, is there any way we can put Shoji screens in or something like that? And they kind of ignored me. I think I was going a little too far with some of that stuff, But I was happy with the end result. But, I really I've been recognized more for 52 Masters on the street than I have for Karate Kid, to be honest with you.
Yeah. It's been really awesome. Sorry, Melissa, there's a comedy reel that keeps getting deleted. It might have been hit by the filter. Melissa, if you have Instagram or whatnot, you can maybe message me the comment and I can get it to here to Sensei Ford. But yeah, I was gonna ask. So speaking of Shoji screens, though, you used to have a video called "Shoji Screens Don't Hit Back."
I did. Okay, so
I was gonna ask about that. What happened to the video? Yeah.
Have you watched it?
I've seen it a couple times a while back. Yeah.
Okay. It was a fan film that I made. Jim Towns, my frequent director collaborator. We were just kind of like, hey, I'm not going to be in this Cobra Kai show, but wouldn't it be fun to kind of just play around with what might have happened to Dennis? And it was it was kind of a satire. I think it ran about 15 minutes or so, and it was basically about you know, it's basically the Johnny story, you know, where Dennis never really got over being punked by Ralph in such an easy manner, and he kind of like turned to alcohol and things like that, and then eventually he just sort of turned his life around, and you know, he realized that. But he had this codependent relationship with Shoji screen, so he would walk around with the screen like under his arm at the park, and you know, he'd be like put his head on the screen, like, you know, like really dependent. He tried to break up with the screen and like leave it behind, and then he like ran back and got it, like, oh, I really need it. And people seem to really enjoy that. And I actually put it on private after I got casted in Cobra Kai season 6.
That makes sense. Yeah.
I put it on private, and I also put it I didn't want to confuse people, and I didn't want to, you know, create any kind of like well, what's this? This is not, you know, it was just a fan thing that I did. But if anybody's interested, you know, I will send them the link and they can check it out themselves. It's very different than the Dennis de Guzman that appeared in season 6, which is canon. It's sort of like, okay, this is like it takes place in another part of the multiverse. You know, it's a much nicer Dennis with no budget. So
yeah, no, that was cool.
Well, thank you for bringing that up. But Shoji screens don't hit back. That title came from the Bruce Lee line, boards don't hit back.
Right.
Into the Dragon. And so I'm like, well, you know, I'm known for being like the Shoji screen smasher. So let's call it Shoji screens don't hit back. And that's how that came about.
Yeah, that's awesome. So speaking of Shoji screens, and of course, the fight in that bonsai shop, did you know that you were immortalized in a Karate Kid video game?
I just recently heard that I'm swinging a bat or something.
Yeah.
There's a guy named Gerard who he messaged me and he said, hey, I got this Karate Kid game and I'm playing Elizabeth Shue's character and I'm fighting you as Dennis and he's swinging a baseball bat at me. And I'm just like, oh my God, that's really fun.
Yeah, I have the clip pulled up. You want to see it?
Yeah, let's check it out.
I will say, so the game itself, it's pretty decent. My only complaint was that, and this is just really more of a kind of a gamer thing, is that I wish there would have been online play. But like if you have like a Nintendo Switch or anything like that, that's like all like local. It's pretty cool. It's very faithful to the movies. So I have it pulled up if you can see this.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm gonna play it here. Now I will say, unfortunately, they didn't do it where like they didn't do like the exact attire that you were wearing, and they kind of like reused some of assets they were already using in the game. But you're in here. Snake's also in here as well too. So I'm gonna play this. I'll look for Melissa's message real quick too.
Mr. Miyagi almost looked like an old Klingon. Looks like an old Mr. Worf.
So there's you and Mike Barnes.
The Vandal.
Yeah, they do this kind of thing where like even before like the tournament fights with like Mike and Johnny, they call them like different names. It's like, you know, so they call Mike the Vandal. So yeah, you're actually a boss in this game. And you also actually have some Cobras of your own that join you here in the fight. So
this is all foreshadowing.
Yeah. So yeah, it was pretty interesting. And they also have Snake's in here too. Did they put him? Yeah. They made Snake a little bulkier than he was in the movie, but you know.
Jonathan Avildsen was a little heavier at the beginning of the movie than the end. He trimmed down a little bit.
So yeah, it's very interesting. I live streamed the game a while back too. I need to go back and play it again.
That's so fun.
Yeah.
I kind of hope that they do something more modern with the more modern version of me as Dennis de Guzman. I think and you know, doing something like a more realistic type of video game. With realistic graphics, that would be kind of fun.
Yes, yeah, it would be really cool. And they've done a couple of Cobra Kai games. Some of them one was pretty decent. The other one kind of missed the mark. I think this Karate Kid one was fairly good in terms of gameplay. So it was kind of half and half, but it was what I really loved. It was really faithful to the movies because it's not just Karate Kid 3. It's 1, 2, and 3. So like you go to Okinawa, you know, the tournament and whatnot and everything and stuff like that. So I got Melissa's message. I don't know why this was getting filtered. So yeah, she says, Sensei William Christopher Ford, I really respect and admire you. You are very kind and a true role model, and appreciate you taking the time to respond to me on the live stream and Instagram. Yeah, I'm sorry, Melissa. I don't know why the live stream was filtering that. But yeah, that was the message that she was wanting to get to and stuff like that.
Well, thank you very much, Melissa. I appreciate you.
Yes, and so one thing I wanted to ask though too, well actually I'll go with this one first. So you mentioned seeing your buddy Darryl Vidal on screen in Karate Kid 1 before you auditioned for Karate Kid Part 3. I guess do you have any fond memories of seeing Karate Kid Part 2, like when it came out?
Yeah, I saw it. I thought I liked the locale. This was before I knew Yuji, and I thought there was some of it I actually liked. You know, it was very different. You know, in its whole feel. You know, just the idea of going to Okinawa. I think that some of it really worked, and I remember enjoying it. You know, so I mean, some people think Karate Kid 3 is better than Karate Kid 2. I think Karate Kid 3 was problematic, of course, and it seemed like let's get one more in, so that it was a bit of like, okay, we can make another one. That some people argue that 3 is better. And I think here's the thing: Karate Kid 2 and 3 have become better movies if you look at it through the lens of Cobra Kai and the characterizations that have happened, particularly in regards to Terry Silver. Because, when you think about it, it's like, why is this dude who is so rich, like wasting his time with this old man and this teenager? It's just, there was just like, it's like, you have all this money. You don't need to be wasting your time with this. Why are you being so over the top? And then when they brought Silver back, and then you kind of understand that there was some cocaine and there was some other things, and all this other, I just, it was like, okay, that makes sense, right? And then, with the development of Chosen, and I mean, you think about it, he smacked Kumiko, right, in Karate Kid 2. It's like there's kind of no coming back from that, really, right?
Yeah.
But they're able to make it work, and and I always make this reference. I have a love-hate relationship with the Star Wars universe. I like Star Trek better, but I grew up with Star Wars, but I liked certain aspects of this show called Clone Wars. It was the animated, and in its final season 7, there were 4 episodes that dealt with Ahsoka Tano and Anakin Skywalker and everything, and these happened concurrently with Revenge of the Sith, and I liked Revenge of the Sith out of the prequels the most, but there were still problems with it. And those 4 episodes makes Revenge of the Sith a much better movie now. And it's like, because it fills in the gaps, and you can kind of going, this makes sense. That's the same thing that I feel with Cobra Kai. It's Karate Kid 3. When you watch it again, you're going, well, we know why now. We filled in the gaps 35 years later, so it makes more sense. It makes for a fan, it's just like, okay, you kind of can let things go now.
Right. 100% agree. Duster, thank you again for the super chat. He says, rest in peace, John Avildsen and Pat Morita. Do you have any fun stories with them from behind the scenes that people might not know? Always a fan of your true martial arts work and acting.
John was very kind to me, and the thing that, I brought a friend to set one day when I was not working. I asked permission, and so I brought my friend who was an aspiring filmmaker, and John took the time to talk to him for a second, because I said, John, this is my friend Eric. They were on their way to another location, and John was like, filmmaker, and the first AD, Clifford Coleman's like, we got to go, John, and he's like, no, hang on. And then, so, back then there were no phones, the cameras were these big VHS things, and John said, hey, do you have a camera? And he goes, yes, sir, I have a, VHS a camcorder. And he goes, just keep filming stuff. Make stuff on your own. That's how you're going to learn this. That's how you're going to get better. And that was invaluable advice, I think, back then and today. Now, now it's even easier, right? If you want to be a filmmaker, take your camera and make something. There's free editing. You can make something. It doesn't have to necessarily be great, but it could be great even for something small. And we have a free platform that we can put it on where potentially 1 million people could see it, right? And then just do it and then be willing to learn that. That was super cool. Pat Morita was always he was brilliant. He was very courageous in his life because he was crippled for the beginning part of his life. I believe he had polio and he was hospitalized. He spent like 9 years in a hospital, just dealing with this, in addition to the discrimination that he faced being Japanese American. Groundbreaking with his comedy work. But when I worked with him on Karate Kid 3, he was very nice and he was dealing with certain demons at the time, and I introduced him to my mom, and he started, Pat Morita was not necessarily fluent in Japanese, but he knew enough, right? So my mom can speak English, but it's, she's heavily accented because she's from Japan. So my mom was, and Pat was very Japanese with her, and then he kind of points to me and he goes, he says, "Musko, mada wakai," and what that means is he's still young in the head. And I was like, was I just thrown under the bus by Mr. Miyagi? And then my mom kind of looked at me disapprovingly, as Asian mothers do, and she's like, "Whoa!" And then he goes, "But he's still a good boy." And then my mom was looking at me like, "Oh, you gotta listen to Morita-san," and I was like, "Oh, I wish I hadn't brought my mom to this."
That's so great. Speaking of Pat, what some people may not know is that you actually had a fight scene with Mr. Miyagi that got cut.
Yeah.
Where it's right when Mr. Miyagi shows up to save Daniel from Mike and Dennis. So you throw a punch. And I heard you talk about this other interviews as well. Was it supposed to be that was supposed to lead into a throw, right?
Yeah. Well, Mr. Miyagi comes through the doors,
right.
And then he, Mike, like points to us, right, and then he throws snake, and he flips snake, and then I get up there and I throw a punch, and the way that it was done, and this was actually Pat Morita, not Fumio Demura, who did it. He grabs my arm and kind of puts it into like he grabs my arm like this, and and then he takes it and he pushes it, and then I flip over on my back. I land on my back, and then I run out of there. We get into the car, and then we do donuts before we zip past the train. And if you notice, the cut is weird in Karate Kid 3. It's a very abrupt jump cut. Like all of a sudden, it's like, well, where did Dennis go? And then you don't find out till I'm in the car. And I never found out why that was cut. And I have speculated that it didn't work. It looked, I don't know, maybe it looked too it took too much time for Dennis to get over there and then Mike to be standing around. It may have just not worked. And I thought, well, maybe I oversold it. Maybe, I did when The Rock was wrestling and he would have fun with almost overselling certain things when wrestling, and he would do this total exaggeration, and it was part of the fun of it, right? He used to do that, I think, against the Undertaker, where the Undertaker would do something to The Rock and The Rock would totally oversell it just for fun.
right
And it became part of the fun, right? But I think I thought, well, maybe I oversold it. Maybe it looked so I had heard that there were alternate takes that have shown up in the original Karate Kid. There's an alternate take of the ending where Johnny gives Daniel the trophy and all that. So I asked John and Josh about this. I said, I had a fight with Miyagi. Have you guys seen this footage? And they were like, no, we haven't. And I thought, well, maybe if anybody had access to it, they would, and that would have been a cool clip to show as a flashback when I'm reintroduced, but they did not see that footage, so it might not exist anymore.
Right. And Jen, I'm gonna get to your question here in a second, but to kind of go off of what you're saying, I've seen one time, and I could never find it again, but I've seen a photo still of the fight that was cut with you and Mr. Miyagi, where you're like your arm was held just like what you're talking about. I'm sure it'll show up again somewhere. I haven't seen it.
I have that photo. I'll send it to you on Instagram.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I have that photo. I
Yeah.
took a picture of a picture, and sometimes I sign that one too. And you can see me with my the beginnings of my mullet and my. I was wearing my Converse shoes, which they let me keep, and
Right.
yeah, it's kind of blurry, It's almost like looking at a picture of Bigfoot or the Loch Ness monster, but you can tell it's me. You can tell it's Miyagi.
Yeah.
It's kind of a cool photo.
Definitely. Yeah, I would love to see it. But that also kind of leads to my next question. There's also a rare photo I've seen where it's Miyagi and Daniel back at Miyagi-Do, and he's helping him train for Mike Barnes. And there's it's like this device with a whole bunch of boxing gloves on it. I don't know if it was some kind of training of. I'll have to see if I can find the picture and send it to you.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. I know Sean Kane had said some of his training montage got cut too. Was there anything else? I feel like had some stuff not been cut, Karate Kid Part 3 might have been as strong as Part 2, I would say personally. Is there anything else that you might remember that might have gotten cut from that film, like overall in general?
Yeah, that training sequence with all the devices and everything they got rid of for whatever reason. There was some changes in the script. Originally when Robin Lively came on board, she was supposed to be like, it was supposed to be another romantic relationship.
Oh,
and,
right.
Robin was 16 at the time, and I think, Ralph had just gotten married to Phyllis recently, and so, he was like, and also quite, Ralph is like 9 years older than me, I think. I think he's in his mid 60s now or something, but he's, I think he felt kind of like, hey, can we just make them friends, and at least that would be something different. And I think everybody said, yeah, that's probably a good idea, and let's just make them friends. And so that one was changed during production. And I'm trying to think if there was anything else that was really changed or cut. We went up to Mendocino to do some of those scenes that, with the rope, pulling Ralph up. Some of that was done on something called Introvision, I think, in studio. It kind of looked like the old Batman show, with her climbing up. And then some of it was done in Mendocino. Ralph got poison oak, and we had to shut down production for a few days until he got better.
I see. Okay.
But I'm trying to think if anything was just changed or cut, and probably there were changes to the fight. Just because sometimes that's just what's necessary. Certain moves get changed.
Right.
But it's been a long time, and I don't remember anything in particular that. Okay. Other than what I've just said.
Right. Sure. Yeah.
Probably when we're done with this, I'll go, oh my God, that's what I forgot to tell you.
Yeah. No, it's all good. I was just kind of curious, because you worked on the film extensively. Another quick fan question. J-Cat says, question for Sensei. Hi, Sensei. As a person who loves music, what songs or genre of music do you play when training or preparing to teach a class?
I like a lot of different types of genres. My favorite all-time singer of all time is a gentleman who was named Sam Cooke, who was known for, he's got kind of almost like a gospel. He's just a divine voice. Was also very heavy into the civil rights movement as well. But just a divine voice. But Red Hot Chili Peppers, Black Eyed Peas, the Wu-Tang Clan, Bruce Springsteen, Van Halen, AC/DC, Run DMC, Public Enemy. So there's a lot of rap, a lot of hip hop stuff. Okay. Brazilian jazz, I like a lot of things. Journey, I like Journey. A lot of Journey songs made it into Cobra Kai.
Right.
Don't Stop Believing. Faithfully. Separate Ways. Those are like all. They're great. Fall Out Boy is another one.
Okay.
Somewhat maligned sometimes. Imagine Dragon. I like the positivity in some of their songs. Some of the lyrics. I tend to like music that's uplifting. Empowering, and something that kind of gives me inspiration and hope,
right?
Even if it's angry.
Right. So that's a good question too, because I was going to segue into what do you think of the top 5 songs on Dennis de Guzman's playlist? If he's training for a mission with Silver or something, what would some songs do you think?
Oh, he might be Fight the Power and Welcome to the Terror Dome, Public Enemy.
Okay, good picks.
Protect Your Neck by the Wu-Tang Clan. Higher Ground from Red Hot Chili Peppers, which was a cover of the Stevie Wonder song. Definitely Thunderstruck, from AC/DC. Panama from Van Halen. Detroit Rock City from Kiss. And, so that's probably the stuff that he's listening to get bumped up. And of course, Eye of the Tiger from Survivor.
There you go.
Going the Distance from the original Rocky film.
Oh, yes.
Me personally, I like movie soundtracks too. So Alan Silvestri, Back to the Future, Hans Zimmer, Pirates of the Caribbean, as well as Batman and a ton of other cool stuff, Last Samurai, and John Williams. And there's a dude named Samuel Kim who's on, he's on YouTube, but he's basically kind of made his reputation. He's an actual composer, young guy, I think. He takes like existing music and kind of reorchestrates it and does these mismatches. So like he does some really, really like brilliant stuff from current movies that he takes like Pirates of the Caribbean and he blends it with Star Wars, and it's like, wow, this is some really, really great stuff. So somewhere between, so that's kind of some of the stuff that I think maybe Dennis de Guzman might be listening to, James Brown, that's it.
Gotcha. Solid stuff. Very, very solid stuff. So speaking of Dennis, this was something I kind of wanted to ask too, because you talked about the story that Dennis was the mongoose adopted by the Cobra.
Yeah.
So a couple different things there. First, did you know there's a song called "The Cobra and the Mongoose" on the season 1 soundtrack? I was kind of wondering if that played in your inspiration at all, because that's the fight that plays. It's one of the songs that plays when Robby and Miguel fight in the season 1 All Valley finals.
You know what? I started looking for references to that when I was writing the biography. I typed in, I Googled it, Mongoose versus Snake, Cobra Kai, things like that. And then that was one of the things that came up, that song. It's actually one of my favorite pieces of music, other than A New Challenger Approaches.
Right. Exactly.
It's kind of cool that Dennis de Guzman gets his own theme.
Exactly.
I really love that piece of music with Cobra and the Mongoose. I thought that was great. And I thought, that it was interesting that Bert brings that up too. I think in season 1 or season 2, right, when they're talking about
season 3.
Season 3,
yes,
where they're talking about, well, a mongoose can be a cobra, and I'm like, yes, Bert,
yeah,
that's my boy,
right?
I met him too. He's a really nice kid.
Oh yeah,
super guy, nice guy. Owen,
Yeah, he's a black belt too, right? From what I've heard. I think
I didn't know that, but I heard that recently, and I think that's fantastic. And Una O'Brien, who is just a gem, she was actually starting to study, I believe, Taekwondo after she got cast. She started studying it diligently.
Right.
And one of the things I had noticed about her was that it's like, oh, her form has gotten better, and she's able to like do this stuff. She kind of looks like she knows what she's doing now. So, not all the actors were black belts when they started. Certainly not when we were doing the movies. Like me, Darryl Vidal, Ron Thomas. We were kind of like the legit trinity. Thomas Griffith. And of course Fumio Demura and Pat Johnson. And I'm not talking about stunt guys. I'm talking about guys who actually playing roles. But it seems like all the actors in Cobra Kai, if they weren't studying martial arts before, they were on some level studying it, maybe not black belt level, but since they have been doing the show, they've become better and continuing their practice, and maybe they have actually become black belts. I like to use Keanu Reeves as an example, because he's a guy who he wasn't really a black belt martial artist when he started doing The Matrix and he started doing these John Wick movies, but he's done so much training to prepare for these movies that he's actually become a pretty good martial artist in real life.
Right.
And I don't know at what level, but certainly he's put in the work as a result of having to prepare for these movies. So it's kind of an interesting way to go full circle.
Definitely. Yeah, I definitely heard Una said she was training like between filming and stuff like that. I think she's still training now, which that's awesome too. I'm hoping she's another one I'm hoping to reach out, maybe get an interview from soon too, because I would love to pick her brain about some some stuff about Devin. And
She's
I
a,
know,
she's a gem, and
yeah,
she talked to me. Look, I came in as sort of a hired gun. Some people didn't know who I was. I mean, they probably knew who I was, but everybody's busy. There's a job to be done. Everybody's professional. Everybody was polite
right,
and professional. But Una would take the time, along with her mom, to speak to me. Because we rode in the transportation van together. We stayed at the same hotel, and when I would see her on set, she'd always be like, "Hey, sir, how are you?" And she's very old school respect, and
hmm,
maybe because her mom is Korean, but and I told her, I said, "Hey, you're getting really good. Your form is like really starting to sell." And she was like, "Oh, thanks so much. It means so much coming from you because you're one of the OGs." And just being acknowledged as one of the OGs, it almost kind of made me a little bit, it got a little, like a little something in my eye when they walked away. I was just like, "What's wrong with me, man?"
who's
Like,
cutting onions?
man, I'm kind of a big softy. I get emotional sometimes when I try not to show it, but it really got to me. And so she's, she took the time with me. Again, I'm a hired gun. The central focus is on the main cast now, and I'm grateful just to be brought in, even if it's like kind of as a callback. But just to be shown that kind of respect is very gratifying, very humbling.
Yeah, that's really cool. I do want to circle it back real quick to Dennis. Is so you mentioned that like you always thought that the mongoose adopted by the cobra, like Silver took in Dennis.
Okay.
So here, and I know you mentioned after Karate Kid 3, he probably was still trained under Silver. How do you think that relationship started with Silver? Do you think Dennis was training under a different master at one point, or does all that like canonic and in canon, does Dennis know just Tong Sudo? I guess is what I'm trying to kind of ask.
No, my backstory that I came up with, because there was nothing else to go on,
Right.
so it was entirely left up to my imagination, was that Silver saved Dennis's life
Mm-hmm.
before Karate Kid 3 sometime.
Okay.
And Dennis basically swore a life oath to him, basically saying, that Silver is my guy. He kind of became his father, not actually adopted,
Right.
but Dennis became that loyal to Silver because Dennis was running around, not really having parental figures, getting into trouble, and almost getting killed by members of his own gang. He kind of ran around with this gang, which Snake may or may not have been a part of. So,
Mm-hmm.
I haven't fleshed out everything. Some of it is still
Okay.
left mysterious.
Sure.
So, because of that, he learned the way of the fist. He learned the Silver bullet. He learned, Silver's method, and any other things that might have been added to the Cobra Kai system that were not taught to maybe the general Cobra Kai students. These were like things that he learned in Korea, maybe
Right.
things he learned from John Kreese, and and then Dennis, really wanted to incorporate that idea of the Cobra. Now, the idea of the Mongoose was that it's sort of a parable that he was part of the Mongoose clan and he was left to die. Something happened, a fight occurred. The Silver Cobra comes up with his group of snakes and they're about to kill him, and the Silver Cobra stops them and says no. And he basically says to the Mongoose, if you're loyal to me, I will spare your life. In fact, I will make you stronger than you've ever been before, but you must be loyal. And the Mongoose accepts. And so he becomes a mongoose living amongst the cobra, and he becomes stronger than all the cobras because he knows the mongoose culture and he knows the cobra culture. And at some point, the mongoose goes back out to where his family was, his clan, and he kills them all. And he comes back, and when there are any of the cobras who are young cobras who think that they can dethrone the king cobra, the silver cobra, he makes sure that they're taken care of too, and Dennis may not be the best fighter, if you compare him to everybody else, but he is probably the most conniving, the most ruthless, the most willing to do whatever it takes to keep his master safe, and that includes killing people and employing people to do the job for him if he doesn't want to do it himself. So that's not necessarily canon. That just comes from my character background, but it all kind of makes sense.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, it's always, I always love asking like these questions, because I've done analysis work for so long, just like how you approach the character, what goes in your mind. So yeah. Duster says he loves hearing that, love hearing the background story, very deep. And JL Health says, and this is something I actually was also going to bring up too, the Karate Kid 3 was actually the first one out of the 3 I watched when it used to sometimes air on the Disney Channel, which I also remember too. When I was a kid, I didn't watch the 3 movies in order. Yeah, and I was telling this to Sean, I actually kind of watched the movies out of order. Like 3 was the one I was most familiar with. The parts of the first one that I saw was technically 2, where Chosen got disowned. I was really young. I was maybe 4 or 5 years old. And then I remember though they aired Karate Kid 3 a lot on the Disney Channel. And then I saw 1 that I would rewatch them later in order and stuff like that. So, so speaking of, adopted father, I don't know if you ever heard this, but I remember, and I'm talking about early days of Cobra Kai. So 2018, 2019, when it was still on YouTube, I heard that and I don't know if it was the novelization or if it was just maybe some fan theory that came up with, but they addressed Snake and Dennis as the Sons of Silver. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah, I have. I did hear that theory running around. I think it was on the fan pages and whatnot. It was never made canon, and I never internalized that in terms of writing my biography for Dennis de Guzman. I just I'd heard it, and I'm like, well, not actually adopted, but I could see them being taken in by him and being sort of, okay, you know what? You guys are going to work for me. You guys are going to do this. And, they kind of became his sons, but not actually adopted.
Right.
And my, I was lucky enough to give Dennis de Guzman his first name 35 years ago, and they allowed me to name him the second time around. And I think it works. My view on Snake is that, it is mentioned that he's dead, and it is my belief that Dennis had a lot to do with that. And it was mainly because of betrayal and disloyalty. And after that tournament where Mike Barnes was defeated and Silver was going through all the stuff he was going through, I think that Snake, being a transactional type of person who didn't really study martial arts, so I'm just kind of like, what is this guy doing hanging around here? And then being discovered that he was stealing from Silver and kind of betraying him. He would know all the security codes, and some things went down, and I believe Snake was kicked out, but Dennis never forgot. And he tracked him down one night, and he had some dudes with him, and they shanked him, and they got rid of the body. Now that's just my theory.
Sure.
Okay? And I hope I haven't spoiled anything for anybody in regards. You might have a different theory, okay? But this is just what I wrote in my biography. I will never ever see the light of day, probably. You know what I mean? It's just like, this is what I created so that I could just. I didn't want to just stand there as Dennis de Guzman and just kind of look mean it's like, no, I wanted, an actor will develop a history, because even though the audience may never know it, I will know it. It'll create a feeling in me or a reaction in me when I'm even just standing there. These things are going through my mind. I'm having a visceral reaction to something. So that's my theory, and I'm sticking to it.
There you go. Because that was one of the questions I think you remember asking. That I asked in Ken Cole's live stream, because there was another misleading information that they thought the 2 guys Silver was sparring with in Karate Kid Part 3 was you and Snake, but obviously what you said, it was 2 different martial artists as well.
Yeah, it was a Samoan gentleman named Resua who worked for the LAPD, who was another person that I admired a lot, and I forgot the name of the other guy, but he was also a martial artist. We can find it on IMDb, and I'll probably go, oh yeah, that was him. But yeah, and they were really good. Both of them were really good fighters.
Definitely. Speaking of Snake, I know the last time you talked about him, or excuse, not Snake, Jonathan Avildsen. Last time you talked with Ken. Have you heard from him since? Still, any in touch with Jonathan Avildsen or how he's doing?
No, you know what? I know somebody who knows Jonathan Avildsen's sister,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know if they're full blooded, brother and sister or not, but I reached out to him, my friend who knew
Sure.
her, and she said, and she's I think in her late 20s, early 30s, maybe. She's young. Maybe
Right.
yeah, she's probably in her 30s. I mean, but Jonathan is her older brother, and basically she said, I have not seen my brother in years, and so
I see.
that put to bed any hope that I had of reaching out to him, getting together, possibly doing an interview. An interview with Jonathan Avildsen would break the internet, and
Yeah.
the Miyagi verse would just be altered.
Right. Yeah, no, a lot of people were looking for him to come back because I remember even he interacted with somebody on Twitter, and this was like back in 2021 and whatnot
Yeah.
too. And he briefly answered like, "Yeah, well, my dad got me the part. I don't know if they would have me back, but I was in my head, and I had always wanted to try to like at least reach out to him too. Like, no, they would probably bring you back, as much as the Big Three love Karate Kid Part 3. So
He would so be welcomed back.
yeah,
I mean, there have been fans who've been, very disappointed that, Snake was not back. Very disappointed to find out. It's like, wait, what? He died, and
right.
even more disappointed to find out that, maybe Dennis had something to do with it, So,
Yeah.
It's just, I just try to connect the dots, and what makes sense dramatically. I tend to go dark, you know what I mean? In the sense of like, character wise,
Right.
And, revenge is a great motivator, and betrayal is a very good inspiration for revenge, it, they kind of go hand in hand, and revenge is also a dish best served cold.
Definitely.
But it's much better in the original Klingon, as you know.
Right. I think might still be a graffiti, or he was a graffiti. JL helped said somebody. Yeah, he was a graffiti art. Jonathan was a graffiti artist. I did
Yeah.
see Jonathan's edition as Mike Barnes too. It was very interesting seeing like a different approach to the character. Yeah. And here's a question I like to ask this all the cast members too. So if 80s Dennis got another go around in the original Karate Kid films, who would be some dream opponents you would pick for 85 Dennis?
For 85 Dennis,
Mm-hmm.
well, I want to fight Chosen, but
Yeah,
he's a master level fighter. If I had if Dennis had trouble with Daniel, I think Chosen would have eaten his lunch, with no problem whatsoever. But it might have been interesting. I think it would have been interesting if Snake and Dennis went at it and see what kind of like a back alley fight they might have ended up having. That would have been real interesting. Like to see, okay, man, you know what? We're going at it, and let's see what that fight really looked like. What happened? And
right.
That might have been a really good one.
Definitely. What about 85 Dennis against any of the kids from Cobra Kai?
They're also good. I mean, the characters. I don't know. Maybe against Bert. And I don't want to take anything away from any of these actors, and they all work very hard. It's different. When you have the character versus the real person.
Right.
Obviously, me as a real person, I can handle myself, and there's
of course
but at the same time, anybody can beat anybody on a given day sometimes. But in terms of character, Dennis's strong point seems to be, win by other means. Get a gang, or hit you over the head with a crowbar and put you in a dog cage. That kind of stuff. That's it seems to be he's not an up and up character. You could say that he's definitely improved, though. If you look at the Dennis, it's like, he's learned some things, and as written in the script, because originally the fight was longer, and the fight we shot was not the fight you got. Dennis got more hits in, so it was written in the script that this character was Daniel's equal in terms of martial arts, but it didn't come across that way once we saw the final version of it.
Yeah.
Daniel still has Dennis's number.
Right. I will say though that like when we were watching Season 6 Part 2 for the first time, that like no, we were like, wow, this guy. I was like, man, Dennis is giving Daniel a run for his money. But then as soon as that sleeve came off, my friend was like, oh, Daniel's locked in. Like this fight's over. So it was pretty cool to see that. But I mean, what I really love about how the Big Three treated Dennis was that, you know, because your fight got cut in Karate Kid Part 3, and then you had the very brief scuffle with Daniel. They gave you not only one fight, they gave you 2 fights with Daniel, which I thought that was really, really awesome, and extended fights too. So that being said, I also kind of want to pick your brain of like, if Dennis was around still a little bit longer in Season 6, who's a current day dream fight would you like to fight? You know, somebody you would fight against. I would love to see you against Johnny personally. It'd be interesting to see, because technically, if Daniel and Johnny are kind of equal level, and if Dennis was written at equal level too, that would also be an interesting fight to see, in my opinion. So
yeah, and Johnny's tougher, you know, more rough and tumble, I think, you know. Oh, here's something that's interesting. The Big Three, when I was filming my last scene on the yacht, and my scene on the yacht was actually filmed at dock. It was an actual yacht. It was docked. I didn't have to go out to sea, and I was so glad, because I get seasick. So does Thomas Ian Griffith, and so does John Hurwitz.
Mm-hmm.
They had to put a patch on the back, a prescription patch on the back of their ear, so they wouldn't get seasick. But they said, "Oh, you don't have to worry, because you know you're doing yours here." So I was talking to them, and John and Josh said, "You know what? We had written a scene where Dennis and Barnes encounter each other in Barcelona or somewhere." And then they thought, they wrote it, and they looked at it and said, "Netflix will never allow us to film this. It just, because of budgetary reasons, and because things are going on too long, they didn't need another thing." You know, it was like, how can we cut things, not how can we put more things in? And the idea, I think, was also that, you know, somehow Barnes would make it to Barcelona, but they just couldn't justify it. Like, okay, you know, we brought him back, he trained the kids. You know, there's just so many characters.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you put these things? You know, and does it actually push the story forward? But you know, that would have been a lot of fun for Dennis and Mike to go at it. You know, you know, and Mike, you know, I think Mike is a superior fighter to Dennis. However, you know, Mike has been not fighting, and not, you know, he hasn't been as you know, as revealed, you know, in his fight against Johnny, right? He's just he's rusty, you know. But Dennis is ruthless in a lot of ways, you know, and you know, I think in a non-tournament fight, Dennis brings weapons to the game. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, I remember talking to Sean. He said there was like some budgetary reason they wouldn't make it. I personally thought, and a lot of the fans probably thought too, that because he helped train the kids, then maybe he would be another sensei, you know, to Barcelona, or you know, for the team. Yeah. So and I thought that would have been perfectly, because I mean, those are the 4 that also stood up to silver at the end of Season 5. So I personally thought he should have been in that and stuff too. So it's a shame that, you know, that didn't happen, but that would have been really cool to see. That's the first time I didn't even know that they had thought about that, doing the Dennis versus Mike in Barcelona.
Yeah, they thought about it, and you know, I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's the only place that it could have, like, you know, obviously on the, you know, it wouldn't have taken place back, you know, on the yacht or anything, obviously, but yeah, it would have only worked if they had somehow written Dennis or Mike back into being in Barcelona. You know what I mean? So I think it was just like, you know, again, it may come down to budget. If they couldn't really, if they wanted to save money on, you know, they didn't have the money to bring Mike Barnes into the story, and if they found themselves being too character heavy, the easiest solution is just to say, okay, you write that person out, you know. So in Mike's case, he did his job training and he was done, you know.
Right.
That saves production a ton of money. Just like killing off Snake kills production a ton of money. It's not always the most satisfying thing. Sometimes it's kind of obvious that it was a writing thing, but sometimes that's the easiest way to do it.
Right. Just how way it goes. So I'm gonna ask one final question. I've been having a lot of fun though. Open invitation to come back.
Oh, thank you so much. I've had a great time. Thank you.
Yeah. So I'm gonna do one question, then I'll fans, if you want to prepare your question too, we'll have 2 final questions here. So, so we know that Dennis burned down Mike Barnes' furniture store, but he was not he was still in the background. So where do you think Dennis was from seasons 1 through 5 outside of the furniture store? Was he just, did Silver's like, well, hey, to kind of protect my image, we got to keep you in the background? Or in your mind, because you played Dennis, where do you think Dennis was through that entire, those 5 seasons?
Well, I think he was doing whatever Silver needed him to do wherever it needed to be done. So, he ends up in Spain and he's got kind of a gang, right. And he's doing stuff, that is just not so nice, probably including smuggling and things like that. But, whenever something needs to be taken care of, Dennis is kind of like, okay, go fix this, go take care of this, go steal this, go threaten this person. And it keeps Silver, it kind of keeps him clean, and Dennis is willing to do it out of loyalty. It's almost like, your loyalty to the head of the Yakuza, it's that kind of loyalty, that's where you just don't question, except when it comes to, harming like a mom and her newborn baby. Mm-hmm. Even someone like Dennis is kind of like, yeah. That was kind of like, he did all this bad stuff, and it was like, your stores are one thing. Do you really want to go there?
Right.
And then it was like, just do as I ask. And he went, okay.
Yeah.
But I would think that, he kind of got off easy, because had he gone off and actually threatened or harmed Carmen and the baby, Dennis would have ended up dead. I think Johnny would have killed him. And who can blame him, right?
Right.
You don't mess with a man's family.
Exactly. It kind of reminded me of
a woman's family, for that matter.
Right. It kind of reminded me of Scarface. It was like, I told you no kids, and then he just like aborted mission basically and stuff like that. So, hey, Nick, welcome in. Yes, William is a sensei, chief instructor of Kaizen Dojo. So, let's see. Oh, Jay Helt says, unless I missed something, I'm still figuring out how Silver knew that LaRusso was searching for answers on. Well, that's a good question. How did Silver know that LaRusso was searching for answers on things he didn't know about Mr. Miyagi?
Yeah, that's one of those things that you just have to the writers wrote what they wrote, and you have to draw your own conclusions. Sometimes there are, dangling participles and, and dangling
right.
plot lines and things like that. Not everything gets answered, unfortunately.
Sure.
And sometimes that's on purpose, and sometimes that's just like, oh, well, the fans will come up with their own conclusions. So. Mm-hmm. The way that I don't get all the scripts either. I only get the scripts that I'm in, but I get the whole scripts, but anything, because even I didn't know what was going to happen, until we finally saw it. So they sent me the scripts. They're watermarked with my character's name on it. So on every page it says De Guzman, watermarked. So that way, if it gets leaked and it says De Guzman on it,
they know who.
They know who to come after.
Yeah, no, that's smart. Yeah. So
yeah. I would say, unfortunately, there's still questions, right? They wrapped up most of the loose ends, but oftentimes in a series there are still questions that are unanswered and are just, you have to leave it to the fans' imagination, and sometimes that's more fun.
Right. Yes, definitely. Knuckle Duster Buster, thank you. Also I'll do 2 more questions if that's okay with you, because we had the super chat and this other one. I meant to ask this too. This was on my list. So Duster says, I'm still excited for Immortal Hands. Wish we could have worked together. Can you tell us about your other projects you're producing and starring in? And I meant to ask you about, and I'm sorry to ask you about this earlier, Hurricanna?
Oh, Hurricanna.
Yes. Yeah. So upcoming projects you're producing and starring in, and excitement for Immortal Hands that Duster says as well too. So
yeah, Immortal Hands was directed by Jim Towns. It was supposed to be a series, like a web series, and then we ran into just some production problems. It'll probably end up being a pilot. It's in post-production right now, and I do play the main baddie in that one. So and I get a lot to do, so it's kind of fun. There's a lot of fighting and a lot of cool scenery chewing, where another villain, but a different kind of villain this time. So we'll hopefully see that later this year. And then Hurricanna is a biopic that was about Anna Nicole Smith, and I actually auditioned with that one through my agent, and I got the part, and it was cool because I got to work with A. Martinez, who is just an amazing actor who was also an influence and a hero of mine when I first started acting.
Awesome.
I finally got a chance to meet him. I was like, A. Martinez is in this, and I'm in a scene with him. You know, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So we shot that November of 2023, and it's still in post. So
I see. Okay.
I am in one scene in that, and it takes place during the 80s, during Nicole Smith's last days, and it's a biopic, and so that I'm looking forward to seeing that as well.
Gotcha. Okay. So this is gonna lead up to the final question, but are you familiar with the character Akuma from Street Fighter? He is past Street Fighter 2. You are? Okay. So I made the joke that Dennis got Raging Demons, which is, Akuma's super move off screen by Kreese. But so that leads to Sri's question is, how do you think Kreese killed Dennis? I'm curious about this too.
Well, I think he hit Dennis with a blunt object, and then he cracked his neck and he pushed him down the stairs. But his neck wasn't broken. It was just chiropractically adjusted. And while Dennis was down there, the blood wasn't coming from his throat. It was coming from his ear. And he smelled gasoline. And he woke up. He went up those stairs and he was like, wait, what? And it was like, loyalty or jumping off this boat that's about to explode. And he went, you know what? Sorry, I gotta go. So he did a bye Felicia. He jumped off the boat and the boat exploded. And he barely made it, but he swam to shore. And then while sitting on the shore, he's like, I have this one last task where I'm supposed to go threaten Johnny and his wife's baby. You know what? I think I'm going to go back to Spain or somewhere and just live my life quietly. I think he kind of saw the writing on the wall and is like, the exploding boat was the last straw. And I'm not saying he turned good, but I think he kind of realized that he needs to keep his head down for a while. And so that's my story. I'm sticking to it. And that gives us a little bit of hope that Dennis did jump off the boat, Jennifer helped, and that somehow he's out there somewhere, and there might be he might be reappearing in a sequel somewhere. Now this is probably going to drive the big three crazy because they're like, no more conspiracy theories. They're
right.
dead, and they're going to stay dead. None of them are alive. I'm okay with that too, but that's my version of things.
There you go. It's like as Ken and Drew would famously say, Dennis lives.
Dennis lives, or Dennis lived, but then he died. Something like that.
Right, but Sensei Ford, thank you so much. This was such fun, and I hope you enjoyed it too. I hope it was unique and enjoyable. Since I'm still new to the interview thing, so.
Well, you did a great job. I had a wonderful time. You know what? It's always great when I have an interview and it's not an interview. We're having a conversation, and it really feels like we're kind of old buddies, and the cameras are on, and we're having a cool talk. And those are the best, and those are the most fun.
Thank you.
And it's always fun when the fans chime in, and I can't tell you enough how much I appreciate everybody's support. So, I hope to meet you guys in person. Some of you I have, and some of you I've chatted with. And I try to, at least like the comments that you make. Sometimes, things get just lost in just the sheer numbers of it. So, I'm not able to necessarily respond to each and every one of you with a detailed answer, but, I'm hoping that at least I'm able to catch your comment and like it, and maybe send an emoji or something like that. But I do appreciate each and every one of you, and let's keep on keeping on. Stay strong, stay empowered, stay safe. You know what? I wish the best for all of you, and and whatever you guys want to pursue, don't give up. And do your best, and just keep showing up. And as they say, Cobra Kai never dies.
Exactly. And before I forget, where can they find you? And is there something else you want to plug before we say goodbye?
I'm looking at working with director Jim Towns on some cool stuff. He and I are long-time collaborators. So, we've always got something cooking, but I am going to be doing something that is connected to 52 Masters, even though 52 Masters is done. But I want to take a deeper dive into conversations with not only martial artists, but stunt people, actors, directors, writers, musicians, artists, people who have some unique perspective and their view on mastery. And it's going to be called The Beginner's Mind Journey. And it'll be kind of like what you do. It's podcast format, but sometimes we'll be going out in the field, talking to people on location. Sometimes we'll be kind of creating cool stuff. So it's not just going to be talking head stuff. It's going to be kind of interesting and dynamic, but that's what is really exciting me. And that's something I'll be producing that everybody will be able to see, probably here on YouTube. And you can reach me on Instagram, mainly at William Christopher Ford. That's where I'm at mostly, not on Facebook really anymore. And of course, you can always email me at kaizendojofilms@gmail.com, which you can always put in the description later on once the thing gets posted.
Exactly. Yeah, I was just about to say I'm gonna go back and timestamp it and put your socials in there and whatnot too. So Sensei Ford, of course, thank you again. And I'll definitely hit you up for a part 2. So.
Yeah, anytime. I'm here. I'm happy to do these things. So thank you so much. This is one of the most fun interviews I've ever done.
Oh, awesome. Glad to hear. So thank you. Thank you, Sensei Ford. Have a great night. All right.
You too. Thank you.
All right. See you. All right, guys. That was Sensei Ford, man. This so much fun. That was really, really awesome. And of course, thank you guys for making this happen. Let me put some indie music on. So I really appreciate it. So, sorry guys, I've been trying to keep track of the chat as always, but it's always, I always get locked into with these interviews and whatnot. So William is the real deal. He is probably the most talented true martial arts out there. Cat. Yeah, if you guys saw that video I showed when he was learning with Grandmaster Vidal, man, it was, when I saw that, I was like, yeah, I knew immediately. So he survived. I think they shot a scene where Kreese grabbed the magazine off of the stand, but I'm not too sure. So amazing interview. Appreciate it, man. How are you so good at interviewing? Dude, I'm trying, man. I'm trying my best and whatnot. So Cobra Kai clue. Yeah, that's very true. Isabel, thanks for tuning in, guys. Appreciate it. Interview was awesome. William versus 6 Dennis, night and day. Exactly. Yeah, you guys have a nice weekend. Degenerate, thank you, guys. So, yeah. So, next interview, Grandmaster Darryl Vidal, which is on Sunday at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time. So I think my very first morning stream on this channel, I'm pretty sure. I've never really streamed in the morning before, but that was the easiest schedule for Grandmaster Vidal. So I was like, let's accommodate, let's do it, So Grandmaster Darryl Vidal at 9 a.m. this Sunday, March 2nd, Central Standard Time. So yeah, it is early, but of course, those of you guys can't make it, you guys can always catch the replay. So it was, so yeah, and whatnot too. I'm still ironing out some things, but I have another interview I'll announce, as I kind of talked about in the live stream, is still working out some details with Brian Takahashi, who played young Miyagi. That'll be the next one too. So yeah, this is the women's trained under Sensei Rabago. Yes, from VR Troopers. Remember, he was excited about Cobra Kai. Yes, yeah, he's really so glad to see him back. So young Miyagi, yeah, I'm hoping. I'm still reaching out to some more people. I got a few no's, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. So it'll be. I'm still thankful for those that I am able to get, and just because it's a no now doesn't mean it could be a yes in the future. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. Of course, you guys all make this possible. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for liking the stream. Thanks for the super chats. You guys have been amazing tonight. A lot of good questions for Sensei Ford, and definitely, I think every single interview you actually unlocked new info previously. Yeah, I've been on a good streak so far. So it's awesome that when the guests enjoy it and you guys enjoy it, it means I'm doing something right. So yeah, I had no clue. Yeah, that's definitely something I'm gonna turn to a short too. Which by the way, tomorrow I have a couple more podcasts, not podcasts. Well, I guess we call them podcasts, right? Interview clips I'll be posting to the channel in short format in case you guys and stuff like that. So season 6, yeah, I think is what he meant. For season 6, that's how they wrote it, from the way he was in the context I was understanding. So yeah, guys, this was a lot of fun. I will be back on Sunday at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time. So yeah, guys, we'll see you then. You guys stay beautiful, stay awesome. Catch you around next time.